Welcome to Shira Audiobook. If you finding joy in the fanfiction, I'd be thrilled if you could subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comment. Chapter 2 The Perfect One, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Here is Chapter 2. I wrote this as I was working on Chapter 1 of The Perfect One and I needed to edit this one a little more before posting it. I posted the first chapter along with the other first chapters of my OC stories because they were already done. The next one will take some time. Will's journey continues as he begins his training as a S.H.I.E.L.D. Special Operation, Tactics and Defense Agent. He begins to transform his body and his mind into one of the most valuable weapons for S.H.I.E.L.D. and for the world, but training is nothing next to real-world experience and Will gets this chance. But it's not how you'd think it would happen. Enjoy. The Perfect One, Real-World Experience. New York City, New York, 2011. 9 months have passed since Will's parents were killed and Will decided to agree to Fury's Avenger initiative. After the funeral, William agreed to train with S.H.I.E.L.D. specialists and trainers in order for him to learn how to defend himself and master his powers. His powers were logged in the Index, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s registry of people with powers, but he was a special case. His genetic origins were kept under Level 10 clearance and he was under the supervision of Coulson, Romanoff, Barton, or Hill depending on who was available. Fury kept Will very close to the chest, seeing how powerful he was and knew he could be the turning tide for the battles to come. Along with training, William was assigned to see a therapist twice a week when he agreed to train with S.H.I.E.L.D. It was to keep Will mentally sane and was standard protocol for Index evaluation. Will was reluctant at first, but he began to realize the more he fought it the more it would interfere with his training, so he took it seriously and it helped with his trauma. Since Will was training with S.H.I.E.L.D., he was a part-time student to finish his college degree as he knew his mom would have wanted him to, and his relatives urged him not to drop out. Luckily, Tony pulled some strings and Will managed to graduate after the first semester, so he was done by December. Speaking of Tony, he offered to give Will a job at his developing Stark Tower and work with him, but Will was already set on his path. Instead, Tony offered financial and technical coverage, so Will could live at home with no issue and develop him new gears and weapons if he needed it. The last time Will spoke to Tony was about a month ago and he said he was working on some kind of specialized body armor and gadgets for Will. Rhodey checked in with Will every now and then, wanting to make sure the kid was okay, and so did Will's uncles. They were concerned, and his uncle Stuart even offered Will to live with them Brooklyn, but Will declined. He was financially set, and he couldn't tell them he was working for S.H.I.E.L.D., so he wanted to lessen the lies he'd had to tell them. It was May of 2011 and Will had learned a lot since he started training with S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson told him that there was a chance that Will wouldn't just be an Avenger but a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent if he wanted it. Not a regular agent, since Will's special powers and abilities made him unique, so it would be as a Special Operations, Tactics, and Defense agent. Essentially, William would be assigned to missions as a tactical assault or defense force depending on the circumstances, and if the missions were of an enhanced or 084 variety, then he would be assigned as the main force. But that's if Director Fury authorized Will as that kind of agent. Will had learnt and perfected several types of martial arts, self-defense techniques, and weapon skills under Romanoff, Coulson, Hill, and Barton's training due to his rapid brain activity and 2 new telepathic ability he learned. Will called it knowledge replication, as he was able to learn the skills and knowledge of someone via a quick mental download, like when he accidentally used it on Barton and became an expert archer and marksman with a simple mind read. Will and Barton were sparring when it happened, and Will tried reading Barton's mind to predict how he fights, and that's when he accidentally scanned Barton's brain and accessed all of his stored motor skills. It's also where Will picked up telepathic prediction, as he was able to then predict Barton's moves with a mind scan. When Will explained to Director Fury that he wasn't just telekinetic but also telepathic, concerned was an understatement. Will then went through all these tests to figure out his telepathic powers' strengths and limitations, and after a solid month of testing, Will could read someone's mind, but only if that person was within a 500 feet radius of him. And even if they were within his radius, he had to concentrate. It wasn't automatic, like he would walk by a person and read their thoughts. He needed to focus on the person to read their thoughts, and even if he concentrated he could only read what the person was thinking at the moment. He could read the target's memories or their deep thoughts, but if he concentrated too much, the target would get a serious headache. Will trained his telepathy and telekinesis, and while his telepathy wasn't that strong, his telekinesis was his ace in the hole. He was able to lift, move, and catch objects with ease just by thinking it, but he still used his hands because it helped him to focus on the object. He could stop bullets from a machine gun while shielding himself from a surprise sniper from behind. The only issue was with heavy items. The heaviest he could lift without any strain on his powers was a heavily armored tactical assault truck. Any more and the mental strain increased, and the nosebleeds started. But his powers only continued to grow. Currently, William was at home waking up from a good night's sleep. Will had intense combat training against Barton and Romanov, who were then going on an assignment for a few weeks, so he'd be training at the SHIELD facility in New York by himself until told otherwise. Will took a shower, got dressed in a dark blue button-up and jeans and went into the kitchen to make breakfast. Will was reading an article in the newspaper about Stark Tower while using his powers to make an omelet. He turned the page to see an article Jeffrey Mace wrote about the UN's response to growing military tensions in Africa when his phone rang. He picked it up to see it was his Uncle Stuart. "Hey, Uncle Stuart," Will said as his omelet was plated and floated over to him. "Hey, Will, what are you doing?" he asked. "Just reading the paper, making an omelet." "What are you doing?" Will asked. "Getting ready to take Kim dress shopping for her graduation." "You still think you'll make it Thursday?" Stuart asked. "Yeah, I think I can. Hard to believe that she's graduating high school," Will said as he heard his uncle chuckle. "Yeah, they grow up so fast. Soon, she'll be on her own, but Lenore and I want to hold on as long as we can," he said as Will smiled. He looked at an old family picture from a barbecue when both his uncles came. "Those were good times. You okay, Will? How are you doing? I know it's been a while, but are you okay?" "Yeah," Will said as he cleared his throat and wiped a stray tear from his eye. "I'm getting better. I'm keeping busy and I'm seeing a therapist to help me with the whole grieving process. So, don't worry. Jeffrey called a week ago asking about me. I'm doing fine." "Good. I'm glad. Will, can you do me a favor?" Stuart asked. "Sure, what's up?" Will asked. "Kim and her friend Katie are leaving for Paris Saturday after her graduation. They're planning to follow U2's European tour. Katie got it for a graduation gift," Stuart told him as Will whistled. "Wow, some graduation gift," Will stated. "Yeah, but Lenore and I will be busy all Friday and Saturday with the Stark fundraiser event and we don't want Kim taking a cab. Do you think you could give her and Katie a ride to JFK?" Stuart asked. "Yeah, no problem. I'd be happy to," Will said as he wrote down a note about the car ride. "Great, thanks Will. We'll see you Thursday," Stuart said. "See you then," Will replied as he hung up and ate his breakfast. Will attended his cousin's graduation and was happy for her. They went out for a celebratory dinner before she went to a party with her friends. On Saturday, William got in his dad's truck and drove to pick up Katie and Kim in Brooklyn to take them to JFK. It was early in the morning and Katie was asleep in the back seat while Kim was sipping some coffee in the passenger seat while Will drove. "How much longer till we get there?" Kim asked. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. Relax. It's not like U2 is going anywhere," Will said as Kim looked at him. "Actually, they're going all over Europe, hence the European tour." Kim joked. "You know what I meant. Speaking of which, a friend of mine who spent some time with Interpol in Paris gave me a list of places you should avoid. Here," Will said as he handed her a folded piece of paper. "This is ridiculous. Katie and I are going to spending out time at museums or the concert." Kim told him as Will chuckled. "Yeah, right. You do a better job at lying to your parents than to me." Will replied. "All right, Mr. Lie Detector. Who is this friend with Interpol?" Kim asked. "He's not with Interpol, he worked with them for a while." "And he's right, Kim. You're heading to college in the fall and now you're heading to Europe. It's a dangerous world out there," Will said. "And Brooklyn isn't?" Kim asked. "The Brooklyn where you live is fine. The world's a dangerous place. I'm just trying to make sure you stay safe," he told her. "And I appreciate that, but the odds of bad things happening to me are like 1 in a million. Besides, I'll have Katie with me the whole time and I've got my phone." Kim said. "It'd be better if you had pepper spray with you. I'm surprised your parents are okay with this whole thing anyway." Will said. "Katie told me that we're staying with her cousins in Paris and they'll be with us for the entire tour." "I'll be fine," Kim said as Will nodded. "All right," Will said as they stay silent for a bit. "Think you can get me a souvenir? T-shirt or hoodie?" Kim asked. Hoodie, definitely Hoodie. Will told her as he took the ramp to JFK. Kim woke up Katie as Will stopped at departures. They got out of the car as Will grabbed their bags. Here, enjoy the trip, and give me a call just so I know you got there safe. Will told her. Relax, Will. Geez, when did you get overprotective all of a sudden? Kim told him. Always. But this time I'm serious, stay safe. Will said as Kim and Katie waved goodbye and went into the terminal. After Will dropped off his cousin, he went home to change and rode his dad's motorcycle to the SHIELD facility in New York to train with Coulson. He was back from wherever he went to, so Will got some more training with him. They were in a private training room on a battle mat. Coulson was wearing workout clothes while Will was wearing shorts and a tank top. Coulson threw out several punches and kicks that Will blocked and dodged with ease. Will then threw out several punches of his own that Coulson managed to block, but Will then grappled his arm and threw him over his shoulder and sent them both to the ground. He then put Coulson in an arm bar hold as Coulson managed to get free and got on top of Will and threw out several punches. Will covered his face as he kneed Coulson in the back and knocked him off. Will flipped back to his feet as Coulson threw out a kick that Will grabbed. But Coulson then used his free leg and kicked Will in the chest and knocked him on his back. Will rolled to the side and got back to his feet as he charged forward and threw out several punches that Coulson managed to block, but one hit him across the jaw. Will got close, grabbed him by the back of the neck and tried to knee him, but Coulson grabbed his knee, picked him up and slammed him onto the ground. Coulson then put his knee on Will's left arm and raised his hand up, ready to punch him. Submit, Coulson said. Not gonna happen, Will said as raised his leg and caught Coulson's arm and rolled them to the side. You're getting better. It seems all the training is paying off, Coulson said as he stood up. Yeah, no kidding, Will said as Coulson held his hand out and helped him up. You're still pretty spry for a man of your age. A man of my age. That's what you say to an old person, Coulson replied. You said it, not me, Will said as he walked over to his bag and grabbed a towel and his water bottle. You're progressing at a tremendous rate. No other operations agent progressed this far in combat and mental training, Coulson said as he wiped his face with his towel. I think you're giving Barton and Romanoff a run for their money. Well, it's easy when I can download years of skill and knowledge in matter of moments. Although, it's still taking some time to get it set in muscle memory, Will said as he rubbed his shoulder. What about the skills that don't require physical muscles? Coulson asked. Oh, those are the easiest. I'm fluent in over 30 languages, know detailed anatomy and medical skills, and I know how a KGB and a SHIELD spy thinks, Will said as his phone rang. He picked it up and saw it was Kim. It's my cousin. She's in Paris for U2's European tour. I caught their show in California once. Worth the trip, Coulson said as Will chuckled and answered the phone. Hey, Kim. Glad you made it there safe, Will said. Yeah, I needed to use the bathroom and Katie is blaring music, Kim said. So, how are her cousins? You guys getting along? Will asked as he heard Katie sigh and hesitate. Kim, her cousins aren't here. They're in Spain, I just found out, she told him as Will sighed and rubbed his forehead in frustration. Spain? How is that possible? I thought you said Katie had her cousins there and they would be with you for the entire tour, Will asked as Coulson saw how concerned and frustrated Will was. I know. Katie just told me, she must have planned the whole thing, Kim said as Will exhaled. Are you gonna tell my parents? Well, I kind of have to, Kim. I can't just ignore this. Your parents agreed to this whole thing because you told them you and Katie wouldn't be alone. Is there anything else I should know before I suffer a migraine? Like as Katie is having you move there, Will asked as he didn't hear Kim answer for a few seconds. Kim, there's someone here, Kim said as Will raised an eyebrow. Her cousins are back, Will asked. No, Kim replied, scared as Will then heard a faint scream. Oh my god, they got Katie. Who? Kim, what's going on? Will asked as Coulson looked at him. They're taking her, Kim screamed, panicked and afraid as Will quickly pressed the record button. Coulson, I need a track, Will said as Coulson nodded and began making a call while he put Kim on speaker. Kim, I have my friend I told you worked with Interpol. Listen to me very carefully, I need to know everything. Did you meet anyone on the plane? No, she replied. At the airport? Will asked. No. Wait, yes, Peter, she told him. Okay, Peter who? Is he American? Did he know where you were staying? Will asked. He took a cab with us. Katie told him. Kim, this is Phil, I'm Will's friend. I'm contacting my Interpol contacts in Paris as well, the Paris police, they're tracking your phone. I need you stay on as long as you can. Tell me, how many people are there? Coulson asked. 3, 4. Katie said. What did they look like? Will asked. Tall, wearing dark clothes. Some have tattoos. They're looking for me. Katie said, panicked. Okay, Kim. Where are you right now? Will asked. I'm in the bathroom. Katie said. Can you make it to the exit? Will asked. No. I'm on the other side of the apartment. Katie said as Coulson shook his head no. She'd never get out and the Interpol or Paris police won't get there in time. Okay, Kim, listen to my voice very carefully. I need you to make it to the next bedroom, make as little noise as possible and get under the bed. Will said as Katie did. Okay, I'm here. Kim whispered. Now, the next part is important, Kim. Coulson said as he sighed. They're going to take you. Will's heart broke as he heard Kim cry. Listen to me, Kim. I'm coming to Paris and I will come get you, but I need your help. This is key. Once they find you, you'll have maybe 5 seconds before they knock you unconscious. Leave the phone on the floor and shout out everything you see about them. Hair color, eye color, short, tall, scars and tattoos, I need everything you can tell me. I promise, I will come for you. Will told her as he heard footsteps and a creaking floorboard. They're coming, I hear them. Place the phone on the floor and get ready. Will said he heard them enter the room. He heard them speak in Albanian, men probably mid-30s, and the name Marco kept coming up. They were looking for the girl and he ordered 2 of his men to leave. They're leaving. I think they're, Will heard Kim shout followed by struggling. 6FT. Crescent moon and star tattoo. Kim shouted before he heard them take her away. Will exhaled in anger and frustration as he then heard someone pick up the phone. Listen to me now, you son of a bitch. I don't care who you are, but let this be your only warning. If you're looking for ransom, you're not getting a single dime or whatever you use where you come from. If you let my cousin go now, I promise you no harm will come to you. If you don't, I swear on God's green earth, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will destroy you and everyone who helped you. Will warned him. Good luck, he heard a man say when the phone was turned off. Will put his phone down and tightened his fist. Coulson, I want everything from that call analyzed as soon as you can. I need to know who took her. Will told him. Already working on it. Coulson said as Will walked over and put his shoes and hoodie on. Where are you going? Coulson asked. My aunt and uncle are at a fundraising event for Tony, I'll need to talk to them both. Will said as he grabbed his stuff and left on his motorcycle. Will raced through the city, passing every single red light on his way to the Marriott Marquis by Times Square where the event was being held. Will rode in like a bat out of hell and drifted to a stop by the entrance. The hotel staff and guests witnessed a young man drift into the valet parking lane. Will took off his helmet and tossed it to the nearby hotel employee. Keep it close, Will said as he walked in and went to the ballroom where the fundraiser event was being held. He walked in and saw almost 200 guests and VIPs in fancy tuxedos and dressed while Will looked out of place in a hoodie, shorts, and sneakers. They people at the fundraisers looked at him funny, wondering how he got in, but he didn't care. He looked around, but it was a sea of people. So, he decided to use his powers. Will closed his eyes and stretched out his telepathy, listening to the thoughts of everyone in the room, and he shut out people one by one until he heard his aunt, uncle, or Tony. He then finally got a ping on Tony, sitting at a table speaking to his assistant Pepper. He walked over and saw Tony in a snazzy tuxedo and Pepper in a lovely blue dress. Tony, Will said as Tony looked and was shocked to see him here. Hey, kid, here for the hors d'oeuvres. Tony said as he looked at Will's state of dress. You're a little too casual. No, Tony, I need to know where my aunt and uncle are. It's an emergency. Will told him, in a serious tone as Tony could tell he was serious. Yeah, they're talking to some investors last I checked. Over there. What's wrong? Tony asked. My cousin's been kidnapped, Will said as he pushed past some guests to talk to them as Tony and Pepper got up to follow them. Will pushed past 2 people and saw his aunt and uncle talking to a group. Uncle Stuart. Will, what are you doing here? Stuart asked. We need to talk, now. It's an emergency. Will told him, "There's a private dining room over there." Pepper told them as they left the banquet hall to the dinner room, which only had some of the hotel guests cleaning up. Take 5. Tony said as everyone left. "Will, what's going on?" Lenore asked. Kim was taken. "Uncle, do you have any enemies overseas? I know about the bad oil deal a year ago. Has anyone ever threatened you or your family?" Will asked. "What are you talking about?" Stuart asked, like Will was crazy. "Uncle, this is important. Do you have any enemies?" Will shouted. "No, okay. What's going on?" Stuart replied. "I got a call from Kim 30 minutes. There were people in the apartment, and then she was taken." Will told them. "Oh my God," Lenore said as she covered her mouth as Stuart was in shock. "I need the contact information for Katie's parents. I need everything you can give me." Will told them as Stuart handed him his BlackBerry, which held all the information, as Will began sending it to his phone. "And there's something else. Do you still have the lease with the private airline that took you to the Bahamas?" "Yes," Stuart said. "I need a flight to Paris." Will told him. "For when?" Stuart asked. "Half an hour ago," Will said as Stuart nodded, but Tony pulled out his phone. "Don't bother, I'll take care of it," Tony said as he called Happy. "Happy, I need the private plane, fueled up and ready to go in 30 minutes at JFK for non-stop to Paris. And bring the special gear for Detmer, he's gonna need it." "What do we do?" Lenore asked, tears in her eyes. "I'm getting her back," Will said as his phone rang and he saw it was Coulson, so he answered it and put it on speaker. "Coulson, tell me you have good news." Based on the dialect and accent from the recording, our analysts deduced that they must come from a town called Trapoha in Albania. "The place is ground zero for criminals like this, very dangerous. Even the Russians avoid them. The one you spoke to is Marco. Our shield data shows that a mobster boss by the name of Marco Hoja moved to Paris about 6 months ago. If he's the one, he's very dangerous and very high up. And the tattoo that Kim told us about is a group ID." Coulson said. "Are you alone?" "Her parents are with me. They need to hear this," Will told him as Coulson exhaled. "The specialty of the groups coming out of this area is trafficking women," Coulson said as Lenore and Stuart felt their hearts crack. Their previous MO was to offer women from developing Eastern European countries like Yugoslavia, Romania, Bulgaria, jobs in the West as maids and nannies. Once they smuggled them in, they'd addict them to drugs and turn them into prostitutes. Lately, however, they decided that it's more economical just to kidnap traveling young women. Saves on transportation cost. "Not my baby," Lenore said as she cried, and Stuart held her close. "What else?" Will asked. "Based on what our analysts know how these groups operated, they theorize that you have a 96-hour window from the time she was grabbed," Coulson said. "Until what?" Will asked. "To never finding her again," Coulson said as Lenore broke down crying. "Will, I know how you must be feeling. Let me call Interpol, they can handle this." "I'm sorry, Coulson. I can't do that. I'm getting my family back. And I'm taking out anyone who gets in my way," Will said as he shut off his phone and made his way to JFK. Line break XXXXX. Will got on Tony's private jet and flew to Paris in about 6 hours. Tony had Happy go with him as backup. Will would have refused, but he didn't want to waste any more time. Once they got there, they quickly made their way to the hotel Tony had set Will up in. Will needed to change and get ready. Happy brought along 2 metal briefcases and told Will that they were gifts for him that Tony made for when he was in the field. In one of the cases was a specialized gun and gadgets that Tony made for Will when things get messy and violent. It was a modified Heckler & Koch P30L handgun with a Recon custom grip, flared magazine release, specialized slide stop, tactical iron sight, and easy loading port, along with a custom compensator that absorbed the recoil of the shot. Overall, it was the perfect gun for anyone. Will looked it over and it seemed nice, elegant, and the parts looked much sturdier than a typical gun. Will checked it over, made sure everything was okay, and loaded it with a clip of 15 9x19mm parabellum bullets. The gun came with several dozen clips with regular hollow point ammunition and specialized attachment darts like knockout, explosive, or radio surveillance. 1. Also, in the case was a shoulder holster for his gun that could be hidden by a jacket. And there were several little electronic goodies in the case, like electronic lock pickers, high-tech and concealed radio surveillance and communication equipment, Tactical bombs like explosive, smoke or flashbang, specialized goggles with various modes of vision and zoom as well as a new untraceable and encrypted phone and hacking equipment. Along with some medical stuff in case something bad happened. In the other case was Will's new tactical clothes that Tony made him. They were new combat boots with a special slot in the right boot for a shoe knife and a holster in the left boot for another concealed knife or pistol clip. Black combat pants that were form-fitting, sturdy and comfortable, and to top of it, was a new tactical jacket. It was lined with a thin Kevlar carbon polymer weave, so it could withstand bullets and keep him safe. It was blue but had a black turtleneck collar area, white accent lines from his elbows to the back of his shoulders, along his waist and around the front. It had 2 buttons on the front by his heart because it was an asymmetrical button zip-up jacket, so the buttons weren't down the middle but by the side. The jacket was nice and light, and it covered his gun holster, yet the opening in the jacket was in the perfect spot for him to reach it with his right hand. 2. Will got suited up with his gun and new jacket and was ready to find his cousin. Happy, I appreciate you coming but you should just stay here. Will said. With all due respect, Will. Tony told me to help you and I'm more than happy to. Happy told him. Happy, this isn't like protecting Tony from the paparazzi, I'm dealing with serious criminals and it will get ugly. I can't deal with them when I'm worrying about you. Will told him. I'll be fine. So, where to first, sir? Happy asked as Will didn't want to waste time arguing. The apartment where Kim and her friend were staying, there first. Will said as Happy drove them to the address. They parked outside and walked up to the building. Will tried to open the door, but it was locked without a key. Will held his hand to the door, using his telekinesis to work the tumblers. Happy heard the clicks and clacks of the doorknob's tumblers and in a second, it was unlocked. Will opened the door and they walked up the stairs to the apartment. Will walked in and saw several pieces of furniture tipped over, probably from the struggle along with Katie and Kim's luggage. Will looked at the luggage and he began running situations in his head as to exactly how this happened. Will, you okay? Happy asked. I'm fine, Will said as he stood up and walked around the apartment. He found the bathroom where Kim called him and then found the bedroom where she hid. He saw a broken mirror with pieces of black hair in it, probably from when they hid it. He looked around and saw Kim's phone on the floor, smashed to pieces. He picked it up and managed to find the SD card intact. Happy, you bring a computer? Will asked. Yeah, Happy replied. They got in the car and Happy put the SD card in the computer, bringing the phone's information and pictures. Will began scouring the picture library for another clue, seeing pictures that Kim and Katie took at the airport on the plane and when they landed. Will stopped on the newest photo of Kim and Katie posing in front of a sign at the airport and saw something in the reflection. He zoomed in and adjusted the placement to say a reflection of a man. Peter. Got you, you son of a bitch. Will said. Happy, airport. Right. Happy said as he drove them there. Will took out his gun and loaded it, getting it ready should he need it, and took out the communication devices Tony packed. He took out 2 earpieces that would allow him and Happy to talk. Happy stopped at the airport arrival section. If this guy was preying on women traveling to Paris, he'd scope them out here. Happy, take this and wait here. You're not going to want to see what I do to him. Will said as he handed him an earpiece. Will synchronized his earpiece to Happy's and got out of the car and entered the arrival lounge. He looked around at arrival lounge but there were probably hundreds of people here and he was looking for one guy. Testing. Will, do you read me? Happy asked over the comms. I read you. If this guy is scoping out women for Marcos' operation, then he'd be here. Will said as he walked around, trying to find the guy. Are you sure about this? I mean the guy could have just been someone they asked to take the picture. Happy asked. Maybe, but it's the only lead I got. Kim told me they shared a cab with someone to the apartment. If this Peter is the guy, he tipped off Marcos' men and he'll lead me to them. Will said as he saw someone who looked like the guy in the reflection. Will looked and saw the guy didn't have any kind of backpack or luggage and was just watching the arrival area. I think I found him. He's wearing the exact same clothes as in the reflection. And he doesn't have a single bag. That is a red flag. Happy replied as he saw the guy glance to someone else. An African-American guy, with no bags, and he nodded to him, looking at a pretty blonde who just arrived. It's him, Will said as he saw the guy follow the girl to the taxi area. Happy, Head to the taxi dispatch. On my way, Will said as he followed the guy outside and saw him talking to the blonde and overheard him say his name was Peter. Gotcha. Peter opened the cab door, so Will acted. Excuse me, Will said as he grabbed Peter and shoved him in the cab and closed the door. He locked Peter's arms across his body and delivered a bone-cracking punch to his side. Peter shouted. Hey, the cabbie shouted. Drive, Will shouted as he punched Peter again in the same spot. The two American girls from yesterday, where are they? I don't know, Peter shouted as Will punched him in the stomach twice. The next one breaks a rib. Where are they? Will shouted as the taxi door opened and someone grabbed his leg and dragged him out. Will hit the ground as he turned on his back and saw it was the African American guy who nodded to Peter. Will kicked him in the face and then kicked out his leg. Will got back to his feet as the guy tackled him against the taxi. He threw out a punch that Will parried. Will punched him in the gut, blocked another punch, then punched him in the throat and slammed him head first into the taxi, making a loud crack sound as the guy dropped to the ground dead. Will turned and saw Peter running on the exit ramp, so Will jumped over the car and chased after him. He channeled his powers around his body and took off running after him. Peter ran like his life depended on it, but Will was gaining fast, running about the speed of a 40-mile-per-hour car. Peter jumped over a divider and maneuvered through a line of cars as Will chased him. Peter saw a parked truck on the lane below, so he jumped and landed on the truck. He jumped onto the ground, looking up at Will, and was run over by a speeding truck. Shit, Will said as he punched and dented the metal railing of the divider. Will exhaled in frustration as he heard police sirens getting closer. Happy, I need a pickup. Will left the airport, his only lead in finding his cousin and her friend dead. He needed more information on the Albanian-run trafficking in a city of millions and he had no contacts. He needed help, or at least a lead. Luckily for him, he had a few friends who ran missions in Paris and had contacts. Will took out his phone and called Barton. Coulson would probably tell him to come in and he couldn't do that. Barton greeted. Clint, it's me, Will. I need a favor. I'm in Paris and I need help tracking down an Albanian human trafficking ring. My only lead is dead. Do you have a contact with the local police or something that can give me a lead? Will asked as Barton sighed. Yeah, I do. Look, Will, I don't know what you're doing in Paris, but I don't think you're ready for a mission yet. Barton told him. Clint, they took my cousin. I'm not leaving Paris without my family. Will told him as he didn't hear Barton respond. I'll give you his number and set up a meet. Barton said. Thanks, Will said as he wrote down the number for Jean-Claude Pitrel, a director at internal security for the Paris police. In an hour, Will and Happy waited at a local cafe for Jean-Claude to leave so they could speak. Will sipped some coffee when he saw Jean-Claude walk out of the cafe and down the street. Get to the car. It is best that he didn't know you were here, Will said as Happy nodded. Will followed him and they both stopped at a crosswalk. Jean-Claude, I believe Mr. Barton told you about me? Will asked. Briefly. Jean-Claude said as he looked at Will. You're quite young. Intelligence agencies recruit right out of college these days. Thanks for coming, Will said. I came as a courtesy to Mr. Barton. He saved my life and I owe him a debt. So, might I ask why an old friend from my active days required me to meet you? Jean-Claude asked. My cousin and her friend were kidnapped in Paris yesterday. She and her friend were marked by a spotter at the airport. The Albanians took her, Will told him as Jean-Claude froze for a sec. How do you know this? Jean-Claude asked. I have some very resourceful friends. Will replied. And I assume by me being here that you don't want to go to the police. Jean-Claude asked. I have 96 hours before she's gone for good. That was 16 hours ago, I'm running out of time. Will told him. Okay, first we should find the spotter. Jean-Claude said. I found him. He's dead, Will said as Jean-Claude looked at him. You found him that way? Jean-Claude asked. No, he got hit by a truck. Very messy, Will said. I'm sure. William, listen, you cannot go around Paris doing whatever you want in the hopes of getting a lead. Jean-Claude told him. I will do whatever it takes to find them, even if I have to tear down the Eiffel Tower. I'm not losing any more family. Will snapped at him. And I will help you however I can. Jean-Claude said as he handed him his business card. Deputy Director of Internal Security Operations, impressive. Now the Albanians? Will asked. They showed up from the east, 6 to 7 years ago, 15 to 20 of them. Now we don't even know how many of them there are. They're dangerous. Jean-Claude told him. I know. Where can I find them? Will asked. The best place is downtown, Pigalle. The red light district. Jean-Claude said as Will nodded and walked away. Try to stay out of trouble. Will and Happy made their way to the red light district, and as soon as the sun went down, the district came alive with prostitutes and men looking for a good time. Will and Happy sat in the car and saw that there were probably dozens of pimps or men in charge of brothels. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. This is going to be hard to find the Albanians here. There must be hundreds of people, and if they find out you're sniffing around, they'll take off before you get a chance to find your cousin. Happy told him. I know. That's why I won't be asking around. Will said as he closed his eyes and concentrated. He stretched out his telepathy and began listening to the thoughts of everyone within a 500 feet radius of the car. He mentally sorted through people who weren't important until he would hear something in Albanian. What are you doing? Happy asked. Using my telepathy to read the minds of everyone in the area. If he's with the Albanian trafficking group, he'll be thinking Albanian. It'll make it easier, Will said as he continued to concentrate. Will sat in the passenger seat, scanning the area with his telepathy when he stopped on one man who was thinking Albanian. He was thinking about new merchandise that was giving people some trouble. Got him, Will said as he looked down the street and saw the guy sitting in a silver Mercedes. The silver Mercedes. That's him. He was thinking about new merchandise that was giving their organization trouble. Will then opened the door and stepped out. What are you going to do? Happy asked, opening the window. Ask nicely. Will replied as he walked down the street and spotted a prostitute hanging by the silver Mercedes. He had a plan. Happy watched as Will spoke to the woman and had a conversation, and eventually, it caused the guy to come out. He didn't look happy and slapped her across the head. Why are you bothering the girl? He asked Will. It's none of your business. Will replied. She is my business. And if you're not spending money, you're costing me money. Will told him as he backed up to the side of building near an empty alley. I'm sorry. I think there's been some kind of confusion. I didn't want her. Will told him as the guy looked confused. I just needed to get your attention. Get the hell out of here before I kick your ass. He said as he pushed Will back, but Will grabbed his hand and twisted it, breaking his wrist. I need information. Will whispered to him as he violently grabbed him and threw him into the alley. He hit the floor like a sack of bricks as Will picked him up, kneed him in the gut hard, causing him to throw up. The second guy in the Mercedes got out and ran to kill Will, but Will waved his hand and he flew into a wall and was knocked out. Will grabbed the guy off the floor and slammed him against the building in the alley, holding him up by his throat. 2 American girls were kidnapped by Marko Hoxha, head of your little Albanian trafficking ring. I want to know where they are. Will told him as the guy gasped for breath. I don't know what you're saying. He managed to say as Will glared at him. I'm not in the mood for your lies. One of the girls is my family. Tell me where they are. Will shouted. I don't know. He said as Will decided to test his telepathy. You know something, and I need to know what you know. This may hurt, Will said as he closed his eyes and concentrated. Immediately the guy Will was interrogating stopped moving as his eyes rolled back into his skull because his brain felt like it was being dissected. Will was using his telepathy and was forcibly scanning and taking all the information that he needed from the guy's brain. Will never tried it before, but it was the time for a shot in the dark and it was working. After a few seconds, William dropped the guy and stepped back, rubbing his head from a little headache. Will looked and saw the guy wasn't moving and there was blood flowing from his nose. Will knelt down and checked his pulse to see there was a faint one, but he suffered a stroke. You picked the wrong line of work. Will told him as he walked out of the alley and back to Happy's car and got in the passenger seat. Did he give you anything? Happy asked. Not much. He's a low-level guy, but he gave us another lead. Apparently, the Albanians run a makeshift brothel at a construction yard and their newest acquisitions are sent there. If Marko has them, there's a chance that's where they are. Will told him as Happy nodded. This time, Happy, you stay back. It's not up for debate. Happy looked at Will and saw how serious he was and nodded. How are you going to get there? Happy asked as Will looked at the now empty Mercedes. I got it covered, Will said as he got out and took the Mercedes to the construction yard. Will drove out of the city to the construction yard he got from the mental download from the Albanian pimp. Will parked his car and walked through the construction yard until he came to the makeshift brothel the Albanians set up. Will looked around and saw that there were some Albanians in an adjacent construction office space, and by the lumps in their waistbands or jackets, they were packing guns. Will saw a line of men outside the brothel, so Will got in line and played the part of just someone looking for a good time. Will used his telepathy to scan the area, but he couldn't pick up Kim or Katie's thoughts. The line kept moving when Will got to the front, so Will handed him some money and he gave Will a slip of paper with the number 5 on it and opened the door. Will walked in and saw 2 rows of tarp and blanket-covered areas, each with numbers on them. Will walked down the row and stopped at his section. He moved the tarp, and to his horror, he saw a drugged-up girl lying on a makeshift bed of blankets and pillows. She looked like hell, and once she saw him, she motioned him to come in. Will looked at her arm and he saw several needle marks. Will then checked every single little numbered section for Kim or Katie, but they weren't there. He opened number 6 and saw a guy hugging the girl from behind, kissing her neck. Will was about to shut the tarp when he saw a denim jacket on a chair. Will got a second look and saw it red doll face. It was the jacket Kim wore when he dropped her off at the airport. The exact one she was wearing. Will then grabbed the guy off her and punched him in the face, knocking him out. Kim. Will knelt down and turned her face, but it wasn't her. Will pulled her shirt up to cover her decency and grabbed Kim's jacket. "Where did you get this? Who gave this to you?" "I'm good," she replied. "Who gave this to you?" "The girl who was wearing this, where is she?" Will asked her, but she was too drugged out to comprehend what he was saying. "I'm good," she said. Will stood up as a guy grabbed him. "Hey," he said as Will locked and broke his arms. He then kicked him away, sending him crashing into the tarps and knocking them all down. Another Albanian ran up to him with a gun, but Will grabbed the gun, punched him in the balls and twisted his neck. Another guy ran up with him with a gun as Will slapped the gun away, punched him in the chest, and put the guy in a chokehold. The door to the room opened as an Albanian fired at Will but shot the guy Will was holding. Will pushed the guy's dead body off of him, pulled his gun from his holster and shot him 3 times in the chest. Will ran back to the girl, covered her with a blanket, grabbed Kim's jacket and walked her out of there along with everyone else who was leaving. Will supported her and walked to her an old Jeep that was close by. He opened the back seat door and got her in, fastening her seatbelt. The 15 Albanians in charge of the operation ran out of their little office and shot at Will, who took cover behind the door. Will leaned out and fired 10 bullets, shooting 3 Albanians in the chest as others took cover. Will closed the door and ran to the other side to get in the driver's seat as the Albanians shot at him with pistols or assault rifles. Will saw the keys were in the ignition, so he started the car and hit the accelerator. He drove past them, firing 2 bullets at a gas canister and caused a small explosion. Will drove away as the Albanians got in 4 cars and drove after him. Will focused on driving as he reached into his jacket and loaded a fresh clip into his pistol and cocked it. Will swerved and avoided some construction vehicles as the Albanians kept right on him, firing their guns at the car. One was closing in on his left side as Will made a wide left turn which gave the car room enough to come alongside him. Will looked at the car and threw his hand out as the side of the car was pushed with enough force to dent the metal and send it flipping on its side over and over, seriously injuring the Albanians in it or killing them. The 3 remaining cars were gaining on him as the second got alongside Will's right. They shot at him as Will turned the wheel and smashed into the car, sending it veering to the side and crashing into dirt mound, flipping onto its top. Will turned left as the last 2 cars shot at him. "Enough of this shit," Will said as he looked in the rearview mirror at the cars and waved his hand to the left, causing the 3rd car to smash into the 4th and sending them both crashing into a forklift. With the Albanians dealt with, he smashed through the gate and drove back to the city. Will took out his phone and dialed Happy. "Happy, it's me. I need you to meet me 3 blocks from the hotel on the street of Saint Marie du Mont." Will told him. "On my way." Happy replied as Will hung up and drove to the city. Happy parked the car on the street of Saint Marie du Mont. He leaned against the hood of the car and waited for Will to show up. He looked at his watch when he heard a car coming from down the street and he saw an old rundown Jeep coming. The Jeep got closer and Happy saw it had several dents all over, a broken headlight, and several dozen bullet holes all over. The car stopped by the side of the road as the engine rumbled before it turned off. Will got out of the car and holstered his gun in his jacket. So, everything went according to plan? Happy asked. Had to adapt to the situation, Will said as he went to the backseat and picked up the girl. She was one of the girls at the brothel. She met my cousin, Kim. She knows where she is. Where is she? Happy asked. She's too drugged out to tell me, Will said as he put her in the backseat and closed the door. Let's head back to the hotel. We'll put her through an emergency detox, and when she wakes up, she can help me find Kim. Sure. Taking a strange girl to a hotel. Nothing Tony hasn't done before, Happy said as he started the car and drove to the hotel. Happy went through the front lobby with Will and explained that his date had a little too much to drink and he was carry her. Luckily, the hotel staff didn't raise an eyebrow at this, as they were used to this kind of thing with Happy when Tony would come. Will took her to their room and got her comfortable in a bed. Will then took out the emergency medical equipment and medicine that Tony packed him and readied her emergency detox. Happy looked at Will as he took out an IV bag, a needle, syringe, a small vial of lidocaine and other vials from the case. We should take her to a hospital, Happy told her. I know, but if I do, the Albanians could get wind of this and come after her. Or the Paris police will arrest me, and I can't have that, Will said as he grabbed a coat hanger from the closet and hung the IV bag from it. He then twisted the end, so he could hang it on the nearby lamp. You sure you know what you're doing? Happy asked as Will took a disinfectant wipe and cleaned her arm, before inserting the needle of the IV bag into her and taping it over. Yeah, I have extensive medical knowledge from my SHIELD training, Will said as he opened the lidocaine bottle and filled a syringe. Don't worry, she'll be fine. Will inserted the syringe into the IV line and injected the liquid. The lidocaine should help with the pain in her recovery, Will said as he rubbed his eyes and shook his head to wake himself up. Will, you should get some rest. You've been up for 36 hours straight, Happy told him. I'm fine, Will replied as he put the medical equipment back. Will, you won't do Kim any good if you're exhausted and not thinking straight. It'll be a while before she wakes up. Get some rest, Happy said as Will sat down in a chair next to the bed. I'll just rest my eyes for a bit, Will said as he leaned into the chair and closed his eyes. He then began to nod off and fell asleep. Happy chuckled as he grabbed a spare blanket and put it over Will. Kid's gonna run himself ragged. I sure hope he finds her, Happy said as he decided to call Tony to give him an update. Line break XXXXX. A bright light shined in Will's face, causing him to squint his eyes and raised his hand to block it. Will felt groggy as he sat up and rubbed his eyes. He opened his eyes, giving them a moment to adjust to the light in the room, and saw the light that woke him up was from the window in the hotel room. The sun was up and shining right in his face. Will walked over and pulled the blind down, stretching his body and waking himself up. He walked over and checked his phone to see it was 7 a.m. He looked and saw that Happy was sacked out in the other room and the girl was still asleep. He walked over to check her pulse and it was fine along with her breathing. She was coming along well. Will walked over to get a drink of water when his phone rang. He saw the foreign number and figured it was Jean-Claude. Hello, Will answered. We need to talk, Jean-Claude said. I'm listening, Will replied. Jean-Claude instructed Will that he wanted to talk to him about what happened at the airport and at the construction site and didn't want to do it over the phone. Jean-Claude wanted him to meet him at a park bench by the river. Will agreed and grabbed his jacket but took Tony's high-tech surveillance and audio tech he packed him. Jean-Claude sat on a park bench, waiting for Will to show up. He took a sip of coffee as he looked around and didn't see him anywhere. Jean-Claude looked around when his phone rang, so he answered it. Hello, Jean-Claude, Will answered, watching Jean-Claude from the roof of building 8 blocks away. He was using Tony's high-tech encryption phone to route the call through a payphone on the street. He kept watch over Jean-Claude using some high-tech tactical goggles. They had tinted lenses with an array of visual and enhanced settings including night vision, thermal, and enhanced zoom. The goggles were zoomed in on Jean-Claude's position, giving him a clean image as if he was standing right in front of him. The goggles also brought up vital information about the person he was looking at and showed if they had weapons or audio equipment on them. 3. I'm here at the park, where are you? Jean-Claude asked. Close enough to see you. You didn't think I'd actually show up? Will asked as he looked at the 3 officers who were undercover, dressed as joggers. And you can tell your men to stand down. I think they've had enough exercise. Jean-Claude sighed as he signaled his men to stop. Mr. Barton taught you well, Jean-Claude said as in his other ear, he had an earpiece where a tactical team in a van down the block were tracking Will's signal from the phone call. They told him to keep talking so they could narrow it down. But you haven't picked up his penchant for covert work. I didn't have the time to worry about messes or ask nicely. Will told him. I know. You have 72 hours. Jean-Claude said. Now I have 60. Will told him as Jean-Claude's team locked onto Will's position. No, now you have none. My chief wanted to arrest you, I convinced him to send you home. Jean-Claude said as he pulled out a plane ticket from his jacket and held it up. Air France, Flight 441, leaves today at 2. Coach. And what about my family? Will asked. I told you I'd help you however I can, and this is how. I sit behind a desk, taking orders from someone, who sits behind a bigger desk. Come on, 14 dead bodies, 5 in the hospital, a building destroyed, total chaos at the airport. My chief was ready to give out a shoot-on-sight order. It's the best I can do, I'm sorry. Jean-Claude told him. Sorry doesn't cut it, Jean-Claude. I'm going to find her. Will told him. You cannot beat the state, you know that, Will. Jean-Claude told him. I'm not trying to beat the state, I'm trying to find my family and stop some criminals. Isn't that your job? Will said as looked down the street and saw the Paris police converge in force at the location that Will was using as a dummy source for his encrypted phone call and knew Jean-Claude was trying to track him. And it was a trailer, not a building. Will hung up as he watched the Paris police stumble around in confusion, not seeing Will anywhere. Will got down from the roof and went back to the hotel. He walked in to see Happy sitting at a table, eating breakfast. You were gone before I woke up, what happened? Happy asked. My friend's contact is no longer going to help. I'm on my own, Will said as he walked over and poured himself a cup of coffee. He then heard coughing as he turned to see the girl wake up. She looked at the needle and tube in her arm and fumbled to take it off as Will walked over. Whoa, easy. Leave it. It's all right, it's fluids and medicine to counteract the drugs, see. Will pointed to the IV bag hanging by the bed. I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Will, and this is Happy. Will said introducing himself to her. Don't worry, those guys who did this to you won't be hurting anyone else. Who are you? She asked. I work with the American government, sort of. I'm here looking for my cousin. Will told her as he grabbed the jacket and showed her a picture of Kim on his phone. Did this girl give you the jacket? I didn't steal it, she gave it to me. The girl told him. Where? Will asked. At the house. She told him. What house? He asked. The house with the red door. She said, as she remembered how she was taken. He said it was a party. And the girl who gave you this jacket, she was in the house. Will asked as she nodded. She was nice, she said as Will nodded. Yeah, she's my cousin. Will said as she started crying. I need to find this house. Do you know where it is? Paradise, she said as Will looked at Happy who nodded and began searching. Don't worry. Those men will never come for you again, I've made sure of that. And the men who are behind this will get what's coming to them. Will told her as he comforted her as best as he could. You see that big guy over there? Will pointed to Happy at the computer and she nodded. He works for Tony Stark, you know him, right? He said as she nodded. He's helping me. And he'll stay here and make sure nothing happens to you. And once this is all over, we'll help you get your life back, I promise. Merci. Merci, she said as she hugged him. Will froze for a second as he gently hugged her back. God bless you. Will put her back on the bed as she closed her eyes and rested. Happy, anything? Will asked. Yeah, I checked out Paradise and there's only one place in Paris with that name. Rue de Paradis. It's an apartment complex about 15 blocks from here. Happy said as he showed him on the computer. An apartment complex makes sense for something like this. Will said as he walked over and loaded his gun and grabbed some extra clips and put them into his holster. He saw a notepad on the hotel nightstand and got an idea, writing an Albanian word on it and sticking it in his pocket. Those animals get what they deserve today and I'm getting my family back. Stay with her. Figure out who she is and how she can get her life back in order. You sure about this? You might need me, Happy said as Will looked at the girl. She needs you more. Besides, Will said as he loaded his gun and slipped it into his holster, it might get ugly. Will walked to the building and saw the red doors. He slipped on his goggles and activated thermal vision and saw several dozen heat signatures, many of them in bedrooms and weren't moving, but he couldn't figure out which one was Kim or Katie. Time to go in. Will passed the doors and into the small courtyard to see two men sitting at table playing checkers. One was bald while the other had a creepy mustache. The guy with the mustache stood up once he saw Will walked in. "Good morning," Will said, playing it cool and keeping his anger in check. "Can I help you?" he asked, William noting his accent. "I'm here to see your boss." Will told him. "No boss." The guy replied as Will handed him Jean-Claude's business card, pretending to be him. "We're doing nothing wrong here." Will then took out his phone. "I push send and 30 agents will be here before anyone of you can even think of fighting back, and they're authorized for shoot to kill. Now stop stalling and take me to him before I shut you down out of principle." Will warned him as the two men looked at each other. "Wait here," he said as he walked up the stairs and was gone for about 3 minutes. Will stretched out his telepathy to see if he could hear Katie or Kim, but didn't get anything as the guy came back. "You have weapon. You're holding it. And I don't need a gun to handle the likes of you. So, can we get on with this?" Will asked, impatient as the guy motioned him to follow. Will did as he was walked through the courtyard into a building. Will looked and saw several men, some in rooms and other going upstairs. He then walked into the kitchen where 4 men were sitting at a coffee table. "Coffee, black," Will told the guy as he got him a cup of coffee. Will looked and saw they all had the crescent moon and star tattoo Kim told him about. "These were the guys. I'm here to negotiate the raise," Will told them as he reached into his jacket to press record on his phone. "We already negotiated the rate with Mr. Machen," one of the guys with a scar on his right eye told him as he stood up. "Mr. Machen has moved to another division. I'm here for the renegotiation," Will said as he put a sugar cube in his coffee and stirred it in. "Unless you think this is unreasonable, in which case you need to understand something. We have you all under satellite surveillance 24/7. We know what you do, and who you talk to. Maintaining the costs to watch over all of you has gone up, and since our costs have gone up, your costs have gone up. By the way, which one of you is Marco? Why do you want to know?" One of them asked. "I was told that Marco was in charge." Will said. "We are all Marco." One of them said. "Marco from Trapoja." Will said. "We're all from Trapoja." Another of them said as Will wasn't amused. "That wasn't amusing. And because of that your rate just went up 10%. Will told them. "Mister, if you're trying to make extortion out of us because we're immigrants, I'm extorting you because you are breaking the law." Will told him, interrupting him. "Now which charge would you like to be arrested for? Drugs, kidnapping, prostitution, take your pick. You've come to this country and take advantage of our system and think that it makes you above the law because you pay some of us off. If I had it my way, you'd all be locked up in ways that make hell seem like vacation. But my superiors don't want the paperwork, so this is the arrangement. And for the extra questions, the rate went up another 10%. Now, can we settle this because I have better things to do with my day?" Will told them. "How much?" One of them asked. 20%. "And I can promise you it won't go up anymore if you stop jerking me around." Will told him as one of the guys nodded to the other to get the money. Will looked and saw that 2 of the guys hadn't spoken, so he needed to see if one of them was Marco. He went to one and picked up a sugar cube. "How do you say sugar in your language?" Will asked. "Sheker," he said as Will noted this wasn't the guy. "Sheker," Will said as one of them handed Will the money. "Nice doing business with you. See you in a month." Will was about to leave when he took out the piece of paper from the hotel. "Oh, a friend gave this to me. It's Albanian, you mind translating it?" he asked the last guy as he took the piece of paper. He laughed as he showed the others and handed it back to Will. "Good luck," he said as Will recognized his voice as the one from the phone. "You don't remember me. We spoke on the phone 2 days ago," Will said as the other Albanians in the room looked at him. "I told you I would find you. Now to make good on my other promise." Marco tried to pull a gun, but Will slammed his head onto the table hard. Will kicked the guy by the door, flipped the table and grabbed a knife. Will stabbed one of the guys in the heart, before disarming the other one and stabbed him in the heart as well. Will saw the guy he flipped the table on pull his gun, so Will pulled out his gun and shot him 3 times in the chest. Will then dropped to the ground and shot the guy in the doorway 4 times. Will played dead on the ground as 3 men with guns ran in and saw the dead bodies. Will then raised his gun and shot each of 3 men with expertly placed headshots. Thank you, Barton, Will said as he ejected his magazine and loaded a fresh one. He ran out of the kitchen and down the hallway on the other side of the stairs as 2 men ran down. One guy ran to the kitchen as Will shot him in the back of the head and the one on the stairs with a double tap to the chest. The guy from the courtyard ran through the front door and shot at Will, who took cover behind the wall. Will then leaned out and shot him 3 times in the chest. Will then ran up to the 2nd floor and opened the closest door, which showed a drugged out girl handcuffed to the bed. Will checked the next one and saw another girl. He checked 2 more and saw more girls but no Kim or Katie. He opened the next one and saw a girl who looked like Kim. Kim, Will asked as he walked over and saw it was a different. He checked every single door in the place and didn't see her until he got to the last one. He kicked open the door and saw Kim's friend Katie zip cuffed to a bed. Katie, Will said as he walked over and saw the horrible state she's been in. He checked her pulse and was lucky to find a faint one. Oh, thank God. Will holstered his gun and cut the zip cuff on her hand. Will looked her over and saw 3 needle marks on her arm along with an empty syringe. She needed a detox stat and to get the hell out of there. Will ripped off the curtain and used it cover her up. He picked her up and walked down the stairs when he heard groaning from the kitchen. He put her down in a chair and walked over to the kitchen and saw Marco struggle to get to his knees. Will kicked him in the side and grabbed him by the neck. He hoisted him up and slammed him against the wall. You fucker, Marco said as tightened his grip and held up a picture of Kim. This girl, where is she? Will shouted as Marco struggled to breathe. Tell me where my cousin is. Fuck you, Marco said as Will grew tired of this. This is your last chance to tell me before I take the information from you. And it won't be pretty. Will told him as Marco didn't speak. Fine, have it your way. Will closed his eyes and did another forceful mental download and absorbed every single bit of information that was important, steering clear of Marco's distasteful memories. Will got names, associates in his enterprise, people they paid off in the police and who he sold Kim to. Patrice St. Clair. Will dropped Marco to the ground, getting all he needed, and saw that Marco wasn't moving. Will knelt down to feel a pulse and didn't feel one. He was dead. My promise is kept, Will said as he walked back, picked up Katie and left the building. He stole one of their cars and called the police and Interpol about the brothel. Will drove back to the hotel and called Happy to set up more of the medical equipment. Will walked into the room to see Happy had set up the other bed. She's one of them? Happy asked as Will nodded. Will put Katie down on the bed and put her through an emergency detox like he did with the other girl. Once he was finished, he stepped back and took a deep breath. He walked over and took a sip of water and calmed down. What happened? Happy asked. I found Marco and killed him and everyone who worked with him. Will said as he took another sip of water. And I know where Kim is. He sold Kim to some guy, Patrice St. Clair. He's some kind of wealthy financier but runs high-end sex slave auctions. Well, that's good. We can get her, Happy said as Will nodded. And I know more. The Albanians have paid off a lot of people in the Paris police, Jean-Claude included. Will told him. You're kidding? Happy asked. No. Him and about a dozen others in his department. But they won't be employed for much longer. Interpol will be getting a nice-sized email later once I hack and show them the payoffs in their accounts. Will said as he finished his water. But now, I'm getting my family back. Happy stayed in the hotel to watch over Katie and the other girl as Will made his way over to St. Clair's mansion where he was having a party tonight. Will was watching from outside and got a glimpse of St. Clair along with other high-ranking rich of Paris and the world. Some of whom St. Clair talked to directly. Will managed to swipe an invitation and the guards at the party did give him some crap about his jacket, but Will just moved past them. Will walked the party saw St. Clair walk into a door that led to a secret elevator. Will walked in and saw a guy standing by the elevator door. Can I help you? He asked as Will looked and saw the elevator stop on -1. I'm here to see Mr. St. Clair. Will told him. Your name, please? He asked as Will showed him his invitation. The guy checked it over as the elevator dinged open and Will just punched the guy in the face and knocked him out. Will dragged his body into the elevator and rode it down. It opened into a nice marble hallway as Will dragged the guy's body into a broom closet. Will walked down and several doors all around, not sure which one to use. He was about to use his telepathy when a waiter came out with a platter and a champagne bottle in ice. "Can I help you?" he asked as Will sighed and walked forward. "Sorry about this," Will said as he hit the guy on the top of the head with enough force that it knocked him out. Will grabbed the platter as the guy hit the floor. Will put his body in the broom closet and walked the hallway with the champagne until he saw an Arab man in a suit come out from one of the doors. "Your champagne. Here, please," he said as Will took the champagne off the platter and onto the table. Will then hit the guy in the throat with the platter as he fell over, dead. Will took the champagne and walked in to see the Arab bidder he saw talking to St. Clair before sitting in a chair as he looked through a window to see a woman in her underwear as men bet on her. Will was disgusted as he put his goggles on and marked each one of their faces and saw they were all wealthy people from around the world. They would be getting a wake-up call once Will was through with them. Will put his goggles away and grabbed the champagne bottle. "Champagne?" Will asked as the guy nodded and Will played along until he saw an opportunity to actor Kim. Will poured him his champagne as the bidder just bought another girl for $250,000. Will waited as they brought out the last girl, telling the bidders she was a virgin and Will saw it was Kim. "Kim," Will said as he pulled out his gun and held it to the guy's head. "Listen to me, you piece of shit, if you want to live another day. Buy her." The bidding went up quickly, up to $450,000, and when Will saw the guy wasn't going to press the button, he pressed it, securing the bid. Will then grabbed the guy and pulled him up. "You will never get away with this," he told him. "You want to live, you better shut up," Will told him as they walked out of the room, only for Will's danger sense to go off and he was hit over the head and knocked out. Will woke up to find himself zip-cuffed to a ceiling pipe in a boiler room. He blinked his eyes a few times, cursing himself for not acting sooner, but his mind was overcome with so many emotions he didn't act as fast as he normally would. Will looked and saw St. Clair along with 4 of his bodyguards. "Well, sir," St. Clair said as he held up the invitation Will stole. "I can definitely say you're not this man. Do you mind telling me what you're doing here, armed especially?" Will looked and saw his gun, phone, and goggles on a seat by the door. "The last girl. She's my family." Will him. "Oh my," St. Clair said. "I'm going to give you the same warning I gave to the men who stole her before I killed them. Give her to me now, and you'll live to see another day." Will warned him. "I wish I could, honestly. But you're not making a great negotiation for it. Let me tell you something, whoever you are, this is a business. This is a very unique business, with a very unique clientele." St. Clair told him. "Rich scumbags who buy stolen women. Like the rich Italian aristocrat or the Japanese UN official in the other rooms." Will said as St. Clair looked at him. "Oh, I know who they are. Along with everyone else who's been here. And let me tell you, they, along with everyone who works for you and the Albanians, are going to be in hell after I tell Interpol. Last warning, let her go or you all die. You're not doing a very good job pleading for me not to kill you. Deal with this quickly," St. Clair said as he walked to the door and one of his men pulled out a rope. "You should have given her to me," Will said as the zip cuff was snapped with his telekinesis and he dropped to the ground. He kicked one of the guys into the group as he held his hand out and his gun flew into his hand. Will then shot all 4 of the men dead with his gun, using the entire mag. Will grabbed his phone and goggles as he loaded a fresh clip into his gun. One of St. Clair's men opened the door only for Will to shoot him in the head. Will walked out as St. Clair pressed the elevator button. "Okay, we can resolve this. I know how you feel. We should talk. Okay, we can work this out," St. Clair shouted as the elevator door opened and Will shot him in the arm. "You have no idea," Will shot him again in the arm. "Where is she?" Will shouted. "Please understand," Will shot him again, this time in the leg. "I won't ask again," Will said as he pointed his gun at his face. "There's a boat by the river. The Sheikh, Rahman bought her. Please understand, this was all business. It wasn't personal," St. Clair told him. "Tell that to the lives you've ruined," Will said as he grabbed St. Clair's head and did another download, taking everything that St. Clair knew. Money information, bank accounts and more importantly, names and transactions of people from the auctions. Will then let go once he had all the information and killed St. Clair with a double tap to the heart. Will grabbed St. Clair's phone and left as the elevator closed. Will ran to a back exit and saw the Arab bidder get in a car and drive away. Will ran after it and saw it heading down the streets. Will saw a parked motorcycle, so he ran and jumped on. He used his telekinesis to start the engine and sped off, running a red light, and nearly causing a car collision. He saw the car park at the docks and a hooded figure get onto the boat as it took off. Will saw a bridge it would pass, so he drove like a bat out of hell down a one-way street, swerving to avoid cars when he saw the bridge and swerved to a stop. He ran onto the bridge and then jumped off, landing on the boat. One of the guards on the top deck of the boat saw him, so Will used his telekinesis to pick him up and throw him off the boat and into the river. Will pulled out his gun and walked down the stairs as another guard saw him, so Will shot him dead with 2 bullets to the heart. Will walked into the cabin of the boat and waited at the end of a hallway. He waited 2 seconds and then grabbed the guy who tried to sneak up on him, disarmed him, shot him in the gut and then slammed his head into the wall. Will walked forward as he took out another guy by disarming him and punching him in the throat. Will ran forward because he knew another guy was coming down the hallway. Will ran as he saw the guy turn the corner, so Will kicked him through the door into the living room of the cabin. The door swung back open as the guard stood up, but Will shot him in the head. Will then ran into the door next to him as 2 guards shot at him. The 2 guards bust through the door, but Will was waiting behind it as he grabbed one of their guns and shot the other in the leg. He twisted the guy's arm, throwing him to the ground and shot him in the head before finishing off the other guy with 3 bullets to the chest. Will walked into the foyer outside the bedroom, shooting at the porthole of a door and killing another guard. He then shot 3 bullets at the glass to his right, killing another guard before he ducked to avoid a gunshot from the bidder. Will dropped to the ground and shot the guy in the head, killing off the last of the guards. Will checked his mag and saw he still had a bullet left, which was all he needed. He opened the bedroom door and saw the sheikh holding his cousin with a knife to her throat. He also saw 2 of the other girls the sheikh bid on in the corner, cowering for their lives. Will aimed his gun at the sheikh and saw how terrified Kim was while the sheikh was nervous. "We can nagat," bang, the sheikh dropped dead from a bullet to the head as Will used his last one. "I don't negotiate with garbage," Will said as he dropped his hands to the side, exhausted. "Will," Kim asked as Will walked forward and Kim broke down crying. "You came for me." She hugged him as she broke down crying. Will sighed as he held her close. "I told you I would," he said as he cried tears of joy, happy that she was safe. Line break XXXXX. It was 9 a.m. at JFK where there was a horde of people waiting at the international arrival terminal. Among them were Katie and Kim's parents, along with Tony and Pepper. Will had called them and said he got the girls back and they were coming home. They anxiously waited as Will walked out into the terminal with a backpack and the 2 metal cases of equipment and weapons Tony gave him. Happy was there with the girls' bags as Kim and Katie, who were freshened up and in new clothes, walked in to see their parents. "Mom, Dad," they shouted as their parents ran over to them. They hugged and kissed their daughters, happy that they were alive and safe. Will's uncle Stuart walked over and hugged his nephew, happy that he was alive and safe. "Welcome home, kiddo," he said as Will hugged back. "I don't know how you did it. If there's anything you need, just tell me." Will smiled as he looked at Kim and Katie. "I'm good," Will replied as Stuart hugged his daughter. His aunt ran over and hugged Will, thanking him to high heaven for what he did. Katie's parents came over and thanked him as Happy handed them their bags. "Nicely done, Will," Happy said as Will nodded, smiling that this ended well. "Thanks, Happy. I know I wasn't the most cordial partner. But thanks," Will said as he shook Happy's hand. "Don't mention it. It was nice to play the hero for a bit," Happy said as Will chuckled. "Think you could get used to it?" Tony asked as he walked over. "Nah, I'm good doing what I do," Happy said as Tony pat Will on the back. "Well done, kid. You really did something," Tony said as Pepper gave him a congratulatory hug. "Thanks. Did you have what I asked you to consolidate?" Will asked as Tony handed him a hard drive. "Yup, everything's there," Tony said as he looked at the metal cases. "How was the tech?" "Life-saving, thanks," Will said as he held it out for Tony to take. "Nah, keep it. They won't fit me," Tony said with a smirk as Will nodded. "Thank you, Tony," Will said as he shook Tony's hand. "You're welcome," Tony replied as he saw Coulson, Romanoff, Barton and about 8 other SHIELD agents walk into the terminal. "And here come the party poopers. They're here for me," What I did in Paris wasn't exactly SHIELD sanctioned and I'm not even an agent. Time to face the music. I'll see you guys later. Will said as he walked over to them. Will heard as they turned and saw Kim and Katie run over and hug him. I love you, cousin, Kim said as Will smiled and hugged them back. Love you too, Kim, Will said as he let go. He nodded to them as he walked over to Coulson as two agents took the metal briefcases and his backpack. Have a fun trip, Barton asked. It was eventful. Let's get this over with, Will said as they walked outside to see a line of black sedans. Will got into the middle one and they drove to the SHIELD building in New York where Director Fury was waiting. Will was escorted into the building and into the director's office where only Barton, Romanoff, Coulson, Hill, and Fury remained. Director, Will said as he stood there while the director eyed him. Do you know who I've been on the phone with for the past 2 days, Mr. Detmer? Fury asked. You know I don't like to use my telepathy to read people, sir, unless absolutely necessary. One of my perks, Will said as Barton suppressed a chuckle and Fury stood up and grabbed the New York Times. Perks. You have perks. So, tell me, Mr. Detmer, which perk of yours decided to put this on the front page? Fury asked as he slammed the newspaper onto his desk to show a headline, Middle Eastern Sheikh murdered in Paris boat massacre. Another story in the newspaper was about the recent surge of deaths in Paris at the mansion of a dead financier as well as at a construction yard and at a residential apartment building which turned out to be a brothel. My perk of stopping bad people, sir, Will said as Fury didn't look amused. Look at my face, Mr. Detmer, I'm not amused. Fury said, looking at him. I've been on the phone with the UN, Interpol and the World Security Council who want to know why there were bodies piled up in Paris and want to know if it was a SHIELD agent who went rogue. I'm not a SHIELD agent, so that settles the question. Will replied. I don't need any kind of lip from you, Detmer. If I wanted lip I'd talk to Stark. What I need is to know what possessed you to go off on a wild goose chase in one of the most populated cities in the world. The Paris police commissioner wants me to hand you over to face judgment for your actions, and I've even got word that the World Security Council wants you reprimanded. Fury told him as Will stayed as calm as possible. And yet I'm not in chains and or with a bag over my head, which means that you wanted to handle this matter internally, sir. Will told him. What did I say, Detmer? Fury told him. Sorry, sir, but another one of my perks is being a smartass. Will said as calmly as possible. It's a perk that you better think of getting rid of. You are not a SHIELD agent or an Avenger yet have the arrogance to stand before me all calm and collected like you did nothing wrong. That's not how things work at SHIELD. What we do is precise and organized, hidden from the public so that the world can live on while we keep them safe. Not open attacks during the day that lead to headlines for the world to see and public questions and backlash that put our very methods into question. Fury told him. You want to be a SHIELD agent, you want to help people, then you need to understand how things work. Going off around the world, especially without proper clearance or authorization, is not how I run SHIELD. I suggest you reflect on your mistakes of going to Paris, Mr. Detmer, or your time with SHIELD will be done. Will stood there and took a breath, as no one said a word. Permission to speak freely, sir? Will asked. What? Fury asked. With all due respect, sir, I think that everything you've told me has merit except one thing. I didn't make a mistake by going to Paris. I went to Paris to stop an international human trafficking and prostitution ring and help make this world a safer place. Isn't that SHIELD's whole goal of protection, not just protecting the world from nuclear annihilation or aliens but also protecting its people? Will told him. I understand that there are numerous threats that SHIELD faces and that most of them cannot be handled, so that's why I acted. You acted like a lone vigilante who went off on a half-cocked mission. Fury told him. I acted like a man who wanted to save his family. And I used my training to handle it the best way the opportunity presented itself. You're right in that most of the ways SHIELD operates it's able to keep a low profile, but the situation I was dealt with could not be handled any other way. I performed as my training readied me, how you want me to be ready for when you feel you can sic me on any one of your missions, Director. It's why I'm here and why you've locked all my files under level 10 clearance and why the people you answer to don't know who I am. Because you want to keep me out of the spotlight. Well, sorry sir, but if I see a situation like this I don't run the other direction, I face it head on. Will told him. The only mistake I made was not being able to save all the lives those men ruined, sir. But I don't regret my actions. You'll learn that not all your missions will go as smoothly, Mr. Detmer. Fury told him as he stared him dead in the eye. But this one did have a positive ending, sir, as well as an opportunity. Will said as he held up a phone and hard drive and handed it to him. What is this? Fury asked as he put it on his desk and the desk's integrated touchpad computer system began analyzing and downloading the files. While on mission, I learned a new ability, mental download, where I was able to retrieve information from a subject's mind. That hard drive contains all the names, associates, payments, transactions records, as well as every single person the Albanians do business with. Also on the drive are the same for Patrice St. Clair, the man whose slave auction I stopped. He's ruined a lot of lives and he's sold to a lot of influential people who need to be taken down a peg. With this, SHIELD, the UN, or whoever you choose can help bring down two of the world's biggest human trafficking and slave operations in the world. Probably be a lot of good press for them. Will said as everyone shocked that Will got all that information. That kind of information would literally make the career for someone at Interpol or in any government. Will there be anything else, sir? No. Dismissed, Mr. Detmer. Fury said as Will turned around to leave. Oh, and just a reminder that those are only copies. I have the originals and I sent copies to Tony Stark as well. Should your bosses choose not to use that information to take down those horrible people or use it to extort them, then it'll be made public anyway and Iron Man will do their job. Just a reminder. Will told him as he walked to the door. Mr. Detmer. Fury said as Will stopped and turned around. Well done on your first experience in the field. Sir. Will said as he left. Coulson and Hill walked up to Fury, who was looking at his desk at all the information that Will just got them. He surprised you, didn't he, sir? Hill asked as Fury sorted through the information. It seems that Mr. Detmer is more suited for this line of work than we thought. These past few days have shown that. A little more training and we'll have an Avenger. Fury told them. Or a valuable agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson said. Either way, he's someone that I think S.H.I.E.L.D. needs as much as he needs us. Romanoff said as everyone agreed. Up his training. I think Mr. Detmer is ready for the next level. Fury said as they all nodded. Line break XXXXX. After Will's personal mission to Paris to save his cousin and her friend, S.H.I.E.L.D. upped his training to the next level, to the level that Barton and Romanoff trained at, where death was a likely outcome. Will progressed nicely and was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Along with his training, news had come out a week after Will returned that Interpol and other law enforcement agencies had conducted numerous operations around the world that resulted in the arrests and destruction of numerous human trafficking and prostitution rings. The UN took credit for the arrests with help from Interpol, and it was a good news day for them. The men behind these horrible institutions would be put on trial, while the influential men and law enforcement who helped them would be punished accordingly. It was a good day for the world, and hundreds of families, women, children, and men would get their justice. It was now June and Will had gotten used to his new intense training and was now even more deadly. He was also given limited and restricted access to S.H.I.E.L.D. files, so he could learn more about the organization and threats around the world. Again, the files were very limited, so they only gave him brief or public knowledge about threats. It was now June of 2011 and Will had gotten back into his regular routine. He was at his home, making dinner, when he got a message from Alex Summers, a friend from college. He said that he and some of their friends were heading to Thailand for a group trip before they all went back to their lives and jobs. Will liked the idea, and since he might soon be an Avenger or even a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, he wouldn't have as much free time as he normally would, and who knows how their vacation days worked. And since he couldn't tell his friends or family what he was doing, this might be the last chance he'd have to hang out with them, so why not take it? They'd be gone for about a week as they traveled around Thailand and ended in Bangkok before heading back home. It would be a vacation to remember, if only Will realized how right that statement was. Will left with his friends for a vacation and he enjoyed himself for the first time in a long time. It was the 5th day of their trip and they were at a nightclub in Bangkok, seated at couch at the side. With Will was his friend Alex Summers, his hometown friends Keith Ramsey and Riley Brody, along with Riley's older brother Grant. Grant's girlfriend and Will's childhood friend Daisy Lee, and her friends Angel Salvadore, Clarice Fong, and Tabitha Jones, who were also college friends of Will. Rounding out the group was Bobby Drake and James Proudstar, more of Will's friends from college. Grant was telling them all one of his stories from Afghanistan while Riley and Keith were gone. So, it turns out, it was a cow that had stepped on a fucking landmine. Grant told them. So where was Colby then? James asked. That's the funniest part, he got AWOL for a hookup and the girl was so spirited that he fucking passed out. Grant said as everyone laughed. No way. Daisy said. War, man, it really makes you think. Bobby said. Oh, yeah, about how high Bobby is right now. James said. These are the fun stories, Drake, you wouldn't believe the real ones. Grant said as Will stood up to get another beer. Hey, I'll be back. Will told him. Hey, are you grabbing a beer? Grab me a beer. Grant said. Dude, I'm not a walking bank. Cough up some cash. Will said as everyone laughed. Baby, give him some money. Give him a little, all right, I'll give him some money. Here it is. Grant said as he took out some money and gave it to Daisy, who gave it to Will. All right. Who wants money? I have tons of money. There you go. Anybody else want money? Grant shouted as everyone laughed. Will walked over to the bar when he decided to try something else. Hey, what's the specialty drink here in Bangkok? Will asked the bartender. The Mai Tai, he said as Will chuckled. No, let's do Sambuca shots. 8. Will told him as Daisy walked over. So, you having fun, Will? She asked. Yeah, definitely glad I let you talk me into this. Will told her as he waved for everyone to come over. I have shots. Now that, right there is what I'm talking about. Let's have those shots, baby. Grant shouted as they all came over and Will began handing out the glasses. Cheers, to what? Angel asked. To my brother Riley for getting through college. Where the hell is that motherfucker? Grant asked. To a hell of a good time. Woo. Bobby shouted as everyone downed the shots. I'm going to find Riley and Keith. I'll be back. Will told them as he began wandering the club to find out where Keith and Riley got to. Will walked around and saw a bunch of other tourists like him and his friend who were having a good time, along with some native people of Bangkok who were enjoying a night out. Will decided to check downstairs to see if they were at the bathroom and saw Alex's friend Doug, a DJ for the club who helped with the trip. DJ Raiden. Doug. Will shouted as he and Doug shook hands. Will, what's up? Hey, you guys sticking around for my set, right? Doug asked. Yeah. Hey, have you seen Riley or Keith anywhere? Will asked. Riley, the guy with the baseball cap. Yeah, he went into the washroom with your friend. He should watch out, girls here overcharge. Doug told him as Will nodded and walked into the bathroom to see Keith standing in front of Riley and arguing with 3 guys. As always, Riley was being as nice as he could, but Keith was all alpha dog. Before this erupted into a huge fight, William got in front of Keith. Whoa, take it easy, man. Let's head back in. No more fights, you promised. Will told him as Keith nodded. All right. Keith nodded as Keith and Riley walked back to the club. Con someone else, guys. Will said. Hey, big dude must pay. One of them said. Fuck you, asshole. Keith said. You think you're better than us? One of them asked. Yeah, I do. Keith replied. This is our turf, not yours. Watch your back, Farang. He told him. We'll see about that, Keith said as they walked back into the club. Picking fights already, Keith. What the hell happened? Will asked as they walked back to the others. Nothing, some girl came up me like they always do, and it turns out she's some prostitute. Guys tried to get me to pay. Keith told him. Jesus, only in Thailand. Come on, Will said as they rejoined the others and made it to the dance floor where Doug was beginning his time at the table. The music blared through the club as Will and his friends along with the rest of the club danced to the infectious beats and awesome music. Doug's set was about to end, when Will noticed the thugs from the bathroom walk onto the dance floor, and one walked up to Keith while the other walked up to him. The guy in front of Keith bumped him twice, resulting in Keith throwing the first punch. Grant saw this and went to help him as the other guy got in Will's face. You don't want to do this, Will told him as the guy threw out a punch which Will blocked and countered with a punch to the stomach. The guy held his stomach in pain as Will then punched him across the face and knocked him out. The fight brought the attention of others and security, so Doug ran up to Alex and ushered him to the back door. Guys, this way, Alex shouted as they all ran out of the club and back to their hotel. They ran fast as they could and waited for the elevator as Will was the last one in, just narrowly getting in before the doors shut. Everyone laughed as Keith and Grant fist bumped. Did you need to kick him that hard? I did, I had to. I had to. They bantered. That was awesome. Riley said. I've got the munchies, now. Bobby said. All I need is an ankle tattoo and this trip is complete. Daisy said. You're looking for a Yantra tattoo? Doug asked as Daisy nodded. I know this great guy near the Siam BTS station. Oh, guys, this is Doug. He's the DJ around here and all around amazing guy. Alex said as he and Keith shook hands. Alex tells me you guys are doing the Thailand thing. Doug asked. Yeah, Bangkok was our last stop. Grant said. Good choice, always good to go with a bang. So, what are you guys planning next? Doug asked. We'll just see what happens. We've got 2 more days left before we head back home. Will said. And back to our boring, monotonous lives. Tabby said. Then we'd better do something pretty amazing for your send-off. If you guys got the money, I know an island where you can do anything. Doug said. All right, well, what about something extreme? Like, say, skydiving. Everyone was excited for the idea. You get a plane, you parachute down to the island. Bam. Doug said. That's what I'm talking about. Keith said. I don't know, guys. Jump blind. That's risky, even for us. Will said as everyone got on his case. It's risky. You can go tomorrow. Doug told them as Will still didn't like the sound of it. Why are you being such a pussy? Keith said. Come on, guys. When are we going to get a chance like this? It's perfect. Now we have to do it. We're in. So, where's this island? Alex asked. About 50 miles off the coast. We parachute down and we get a boat to pick us up when we're done. Doug said. All right, we're doing it. First thing tomorrow. Alex said as Will still didn't have a good feeling about this. How right he was. Line break XXXXX. If Will had put money on the bad feeling he had on the skydiving trip to the island Doug told them about, it would have been a smart bet. The skydiving was fun and everyone made it to the island safely and they had a good time, exploring and goofing around for about a few hours, but then things went south really fast. All of a sudden, men dressed in red clothing and carrying assault rifles charged them on the beach they were relaxing at. Bullets flew through the air and grenades were thrown, causing everyone to run into the woods in fright. The group got separated as some of them were captured while some ran. Doug got killed with a knife by one of the men while Will tried to escape with the others, only for a mortar round from an attack boat to stop that. Will managed to put up a barrier by his friends, but the impact knocked him unconscious and the last thing he saw were his friends being taken prisoner. Will then woke up with his hands tied behind his back and sitting on the ground in a bamboo cage, sitting across from Grant. Will yelled to Grant but a gag muffled his voice. I've got the worst luck if this happens to me only a month after I get my cousin back from the Albanians. Will thought to himself as he looked around and saw a guy with a mohawk, a red tank top and carrying Alex's phone walk up to them. I got to say, man. This is some serious awesome shit. The guy said as he showed them the recording Will took of them skydiving. Jumping out of airplanes, flying like birds. Fuck, that is crazy. Will didn't even have to read this guy's mind to know that he was deranged, just by the way he spoke. I like this phone, this is a nice fucking phone. So, what do we have here? Grant and William from New Jersey, home of the Jersey Shore, stupid shit like that. He said as he chuckled. Well, I hope your mama and your papa really love you, because you 2 white boys look very expensive. And that's good, because I like expensive thing. Grant began shouting at him but the rag muffled his voice. I'm sorry, what did you say? What did you say? Do you want me to slice you open like I did your friend? Shut the fuck up, okay. I'm the one with the fucking dick. Look at me, look me in the fucking eye. He shouted to Grant. Hey, you fuck, look me in the eye. You're my bitch. I rule this fucking kingdom. Shut the fuck up, or you die. Will saw how Grant was going crazy, but Will's shield training always taught him to remain calm in situations like this. Will needed to find his friends first and he wasn't going to waste energy on rage. Will then saw the guy looking at him with a deranged look. What is it, Will? Will, what is it? Why aren't you laughing now like you did up there? What, is it not fun anymore? Have I failed to entertain you? You see, the thing is, up there, you thought you had a chance. Way up in the fucking skies you thought you had your finger on the pussy trigger. But hermano, down here, you hit the ground, he said as he rubbed some dirt and stood up. It's okay. I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna relax because you, moi, and your tough guy friend, we are going to have a lot of fun together while we wait for the money. The guy told them, Boss, stop scaring the hostages. I need you to take care of the rejects. Another guy told him, obviously in charge. I just hope that you two pieces of fucks are more entertaining than your friends. They're not going to last long where I've sent them, he said as he walked away, leaving a guard to watch over them. Will waited as he saw the guard sit down in a chair and play some cards. Will then ripped apart the bonds and took the gag out of his mouth. Grant, what the hell happened? Where are the others? Will asked as he crouched over and removed his gag and the binds. Don't know. We got separated. Guess you were right about having a bad feeling, Will. Grant said as Will looked at the cage and saw the tied rope that held it close. Will reached his hand around the bamboo bar, untied it, and slowly opened it. He motioned Grant to keep quiet and stay low as Will slowly moved over to the sitting guard. When Will got close enough and put the guy in a headlock. The guy struggled but Will didn't let go, and after about 60 seconds, the pirate went limp. Will moved his body into some bushes and grabbed the knife from his belt and the pistol in his holster, which was a Colt M1911. Will ejected the clip and pulled the barrel, checking to see a bullet in the chamber. He then put the clip back in and tucked it into his belt. Where the hell did you learn to do that? Grant asked, seeing Will do all that like a seasoned military veteran. You went into the army. I went into spy work. Long story, I'll explain later. We need to get the hell out of here. Come on, Will said as they stayed low and slowly tried to find a way out. They saw dead bodies hung up like cattle and more cages. There were other buildings and huts as they kept moving, staying as quiet as possible so they didn't alert some guards playing poker. They made their way around the guards and made their way in between two buildings where they could see the rest of the compound with more red-shirted pirates, armed with guns. They crawled under a building and made it past more guards and kept moving. They walked into an empty hut where they saw hundreds of pounds of opium, cocaine, and other types of drugs stored in the warehouse. These guys must be running a drug operation on the island. They made their way into a second room where Will saw a picture of a woman pinned to the wall. On a table, William saw hundreds of passports from all around the world. These guys have been doing this for a while. Will also saw one of the digital cameras that Will and his friend had taken with them, a tablet, a satellite phone the pirates use, and a map. Let's grab our stuff and the map, Grant said as Will nodded. Will grabbed the map and camera while Grant took the tablet and satellite phone. Grant also grabbed a knife that was stuck into the table. They heard one of the pirates speak through the phone so it could be useful in listening in on them. They kept moving along the edge of the compound, staying hidden and out of sight of the pirates. They kept moving and saw Voss executing some people on a stage. Will took out the camera and took a picture of him, getting a clean image of his face. Will also saw the rest of the cages and zoomed in but couldn't see their friends. They weren't here. Will, come on, Grant said as Will followed. Grant and Will then had to crawl under a walkway through the compound as vehicles and more pirates came in, and Will knew that he couldn't risk fighting with Grant here and he didn't know where his friends were. They'd come up with a plan later. They moved slowly but surely until they finally made it to the jungle. Jesus Christ, Grant said as they moved behind some trees, away from the compound. We never should have made that jump. Will took out the map and saw it was labeled with various red dots all over the island, possible other compounds. Don't worry, Grant. We'll find Daisy, Riley, and the others. We're gonna free them and then we're gonna get the hell home. Will said as his danger sense kicked in and tackled Grant to the ground to avoid a bullet. What? Huh, you want to run? Huh, you want to run and disrespect me? Voss shouted as Will grabbed the map and put it in his pocket. You're damn right, asshole. Will shouted as he fired the pistol at Voss and his two bodyguards. He killed the two guards but Voss ducked behind a wall. Will saw a gasoline barrel and shot at it, causing an explosion but using up the last bullet in the bullet. Shit, run. Will and Grant booked it as they heard Voss shouting at them accompanied by the sound of gunfire. Move, move, Grant shouted as they ran deep into the jungle as bullets whizzed past them. They ran as fast as they could as they then slid down a hill and hit the ground hard. They got back up and kept running as the pirates closed in on them and a searchlight shined on them from the sky. They jumped a gap as they heard the sound of a helicopter. They have a chopper. Grant shouted. Keep running. Will shouted as they kept moving through the jungle. What about the others? Grant shouted. We'll find them later. Will shouted as they had to crawl through narrow opening. Grant made it through followed by Will when one of the pirates jumped down at them with a knife. He tried to stab Will but Will grabbed the knife and stabbed him in the neck. They resumed their running as they heard dogs after them. They made it to a bridge but the helicopter arrived and began shooting at the bridge. Will threw out his hand and used telekinetic push to hit the helicopter's rear blade, destroying it. This caused it to begin spinning out of control and unfortunately smashed through the bridge, cutting it in half. Will and Grant held on for dear life as they then hit the water below and were carried away by the current. They faded in and out of consciousness and the last thing Will saw was a tattooed hand grabbed him and Grant. The jungle speaks through the warrior. The path leads to the heart of the jungle. Follow the path, and you will find the answer. Will heard a voice say as he woke up and saw he was in a wood hut. He turned and saw an African American man with glasses and wearing an old Air Force jacket tattooing something on his arm. What the hell are you doing? Will shouted as he sat up and the man tried to get him to lay back down. You are awake. Well, not all of you. The arm has been deadened to allow for the tattoo. The man said as Will saw tattoo circle around his left arm. No, it's not. Will said as he pulled his arm free and stood up, flexing his arm, and glared at the man. Oh, you are a strong one. He said as he pulled out a machete and pointed it at Will. A strong man makes a strong warrior. He chuckled as he then held the handle out to Will. I'm Dennis. Will said as he took the machete. Bongow, Laba Laba, the heron, the shark, and the spider. I know who you are, Will. You are a warrior. And tattoo will allow you to unveil your true self. Dennis said as Will put the machete away. Look, thanks for saving me. But where's the guy the first was with? Will asked as Dennis nodded and he showed him to the other room where Will saw Grant asleep on a cot with his leg in a makeshift brace and bandages around it. What happened to him? His leg was broken in the fall. We managed to set it and he will make a recovery. Dennis said. Thank you, but I need to find 9 other friends that the pirates took. Will said as Dennis nodded. Come with me. Dennis said. So, you'll help? Will asked. No, you can only help yourself. I am going to free you. Dennis said as they walked outside and Will was greeted with the sight of a small yet vibrant and active town. How did we get here? Will asked. I found you and your friend by the beach. Welcome to Amanaki village. It is something, isn't it, huh? Dennis said as he then spoke to the people. Selamat Tengahari. I have William Detmer with me. The man who escaped Voss's camp alive. They cheered as Will just waved. Your escape is a sign that the battle has turned. Our people are in need of good news. Dennis said. These are your people. Will asked. The island calls to the strongest. It called to me. The island dwellers, the Rakyat, accepted. And I became a member of their tribe. Dennis said as he looked at 2 women who were wearing very little clothing. They are something, aren't they? Sure. Now can you point me in the direction to help my friends? Will asked as Dennis nodded and handed him a small roll of money. Cash for weapons. Get a gun first, then meet me outside. Dennis said as Will walked into a makeshift gun store. What can I get for this? Will asked as he put the money on the table and woman who ran the store gave him a 6P9 Soviet-era pistol. She also put down 4 extra clips of ammo and a leg-thigh holster. There you go, but take down those radio towers and I'll give you something a little extra next time. She said as Will nodded. Will walked out and strapped the holster to his right thigh, put the pistol in the holster and the extra clips in the ammo slots. Will followed Dennis out of the town, blocking out what Dennis was saying about the jungle and spirit of the warrior because right now, he didn't care. He just needed to find his friends. Dennis told him about radio towers that were all over the island and how Voss set up scramblers on them so he could communicate with his men and keep anyone from contacting the outside world or vice versa. Taking down the scramblers would make it harder for Voss to retaliate back, keep track of him, and Will could try and contact S.H.I.E.L.D. for help. Dennis stood by a car at the gate of the village as Will walked to the radio tower. He walked up the dirt pathway and saw the old, rusted, and disheveled state the tower was in. No way were the stairs all in one piece. Okay, stairs aren't the safest way. Let's try this. Will said as he shook his legs a bit and took a deep breath. He concentrated his powers to his legs, remembering the time from the Stark Expo attack as the ground underneath his feet began to tremble and small pebbles and dirt began to float in the air. Will then jumped and he soared up to 40 feet in the air and managed to land on the top platform of the radio tower. Phew, that was awesome. Will walked over to the power junction box as he saw how high he was up. Okay. Right, don't look down. Will said as he walked over power box and ripped off the lock. He opened it and saw the scrambled attached to the broadcast wire, so he detached it and reattached the radio tower transmitter and activated the tower. Will took out the satellite phone he stole from pirates and trying calling anyone from SHIELD, but the signal wasn't strong enough and he kept getting static or the line cut out. The other scramblers must still be interfering with the signal, he'd have to take down more of them to make a call. Will then jumped off the tower and slowed his descent with his powers so he didn't break his legs or kill himself. He slowly fell down and when he was a foot off the ground, he stopped and dropped to the ground with ease. He walked over to Dennis, who was now brandishing an AK-47 slung over his shoulder. Well done. Show me your map, Dennis said as Will brought out the paper map of the island. That tower was only one of them. Many litter the island, but for everyone you disable, more of your journey will be made easier. You will be able to listen in on the communication of Voss's men with your phone and they will have a harder time keeping track of you and organizing retaliations. The more towers you take down, the easier the shopkeepers will be able to do business with the outside and will reward you with weapons. Your journey is only beginning, William. The jungle is a perilous place and Voss's men control all of it. It will not be an easier fight to get your friends back. I've been through a lot worse, Will said as the satellite phone in his pocket began ringing. What the? Will pressed the answer button and he heard a voice and the sound of two girls crying. Hey, Felipe. We're driving to the outpost near Amanaki. We have two of the American girls. Come have some fun, the person said. Your fun's over, Will said as he hung up. We need to get them back. Follow me, Dennis said as they got in the car and Dennis drove away. What's this outpost they've taken my friends to? Will asked. The outposts are strongholds found throughout Rook Island. Voss's pirates hold them to control the surrounding area. Dennis said. Good, I need to let off some steam. Will said. Rescuing your friends will kill two pigs with one stone. We are at war with Voss. Taking outposts from the pirates is key to reclaiming the island. We conquer one for the Rakyat, the area becomes safer. This means faster travel for everyone, and new opportunities too. Develop your skills as a warrior. Dennis told him. My skills are more than enough to handle some pirates, believe me. Will told him as a jeep drove onto the road with four men dressed in blue and armed with weapons. Who's in the truck? Rakyat warriors. The true Rakyat who live at the heart of the island. The Tatau will help them to trust you. Dennis said. Listen, Dennis. I appreciate saving me and Grant on the beach, but I just want to save my friends and get the hell home. Don't think about having me join or fighting your war for you. Will said as they arrived near the camp. Our goals are one and the same, William. The jungle calls to the strong of heart and mind. Men like you. You will find that once you step into the jungle, you will not want to come out. Dennis said as he grabbed and loaded his AK-47. Go and start the attack. We shall wait for you to begin the attack. Will saw the two roads leading into the outpost, so he decided to take the stealthy route and sneak through the woods. He slowly made his way through the brush and saw two small metal shacks and a large cargo container headquarters. He saw 7 pirates armed with assault rifles and 1 guard dog. The guard dog was going to be tricky as he knew it would give his position away. He did see some gasoline barrels by a pickup truck and got an idea. He used his telekinesis to pick a rock up and throw it through the air, smashing into the truck's window, causing the car alarm to go off. What's that? One of the pirates asked. Go check it out, another said as 3 pirates and the dog walked over to the truck as the other 4 stood at alert. Will slowly moved behind one of the 4 and put him in a chokehold. The pirates struggled to breathe as Will didn't let go and soon he passed out. Will pulled him out of sight and grabbed the pirate's AK-47 and the ammo bag bandolier and slung it over his shoulder. Will saw the pirate also had a grenade and that gave him an idea. He picked it up, pulled the pin and threw it over to the truck. What the? Grenade? The pirate shouted as the grenade went off, causing the truck and the gas barrels to explode in a huge fiery explosion, killing the 3 pirates and the dog. What the? A pirate shouted as Will got up behind him and stabbed him in the neck with the machete. The last 3 pirates turned and saw one of them killed and pointed their guns at him. Will took out the pirate's 1911 pistol and killed the nearest pirate with a headshot as he held the pirate's dead body to him like a shield as the body took the bullets from the last 2 pirates. Will fired the pistol and killed the last 2 pirates with shots to the chests. Will discarded the pistol and dropped the dead pirate as he ran up to the cargo container and smashed into the room. Daisy, Angel, Clarice, Tabby. Will shouted as he ran into the room and saw a table with an old laptop and radio set up, several cots, a weapons locker and some tables and chairs, but no sign of his friends. Damn it. Will looked around for any clue as to where his friends were when a radio transmission came in. The outpost near Amanaki is under attack. Where are the American prisoners? We lost them. What? They escaped on the west side of the fucking island. I'll tell you about when we get there. They escaped. Will said as he walked up to the radio and grabbed a walkie-talkie and set it to the radio frequency the pirates were using. He then grabbed the laptop off the table and put in a backpack he grabbed for later and walked outside as a Rakyat warrior walked up to him. William, you are worthy of the Tatau. Worthy to walk the path of the warrior. He said as he pat William on the shoulder and Dennis walked up to him. We found 2 of your friends at the colonist house. Dr. Earnhardt to the west. But do not worry, it is safe there. The doctor will be waiting for you. Dennis told him. West, got it. Did they tell you which friends? Will asked. No, but we will keep continuing our search for the others. I will radio you if we hear more. Keep your head up, William. The tribe is very impressed with you. And do not worry about your other friend. He will be safe in the village until you return. Dennis said as he and the Rakyat warriors left. Will went over to one of the ATVs the pirates used and drove to the western side of the island, using his map to plot out a route. He drove through the dense jungles and near seaside cliffs and small swamps or rivers. Will drove for about an hour through the island when a pirate-occupied pickup saw him and followed. They shot at him as bullets whizzed past his head and any that did hit him bounced off the telekinetic barrier he put around his body. Will drove over a bridge and drifted around a corner as the pirates followed him. Will looked back and waved his hand, smashing the front of the truck and causing it to veer off the road and smash into a tree. Will resumed his ride and saw a huge manor on a hill. That was where Dr. Earnhardt is. Will continued on the path until he came to a large metal fence and parked the ATV there and finished the rest of the trip on foot. He made his way up the hill path and saw a small pond, a garden, a windmill, a greenhouse with an open door and an old manor that had seen better days. Hello, Dr. Earnhardt. Will shouted as he walked into the greenhouse to see a bunch of medicinal plants and several bowls with various colored pellets. Will looked around and recognized some of the plants as medicinal or toxic from his shield training with Barton, Coulson, and Romanoff, and before he could look any further, he heard footsteps and saw an old pale man in a dirty green suit walk in. Do you seen anything you fancy? I like the red ones myself. The purples will give you a life on a gray day. Everything is excellent, really. Oh, not the yellows, don't take them, they're liable to kill you. The mix is not quite right yet. Well, that said, Dr. Earnhardt here. Or, in and out, as the case may be. Earnhardt said as Will nodded. Right, I'm William. Dennis said you'd be able to help me. That you'd found 2 of my friends. Americans. Will asked as the doctor nodded. Ah, yes. Daisy and Angel. Earnhardt said. So, it's Daisy and Angel that got away. Where are they? Will asked. Oh, they're in my house, sir. Here, up the stairs, and it's the bedroom to the right. Earnhardt said as Will nodded. You go ahead. I must bring up some items. Will ran into the house and up the stairs to the bedroom where he saw Angel sitting in a chair by a bed. Angel. Will said. Will. Angel shouted as they hugged each other, glad that the other was safe. You're alive. Yeah, same could be said for you. Will said as he looked down and saw Daisy laying on a bed, asleep but in bad condition. What happened to Daisy? How did you guys get away? We ran into the woods when the pirates stopped to make a call. We barely got away when the doctor found us. Don't worry, he's sweet and kind of harmless. Did anyone else make it? Angel asked. Grant's alive. Daisy will be happy to hear that. Will said as he sat on the bed and felt her head and she was burning with a fever. She's burning up. The doctor walked in carrying an old girly lunchbox. Yes, of course. When I found your friends, she cut her arm, which in itself would be no cause for alarm, but she had cut it on a field of Antiaris toxicara. The doctor said. Upas trees. Highly poisonous. Will said as the doctor nodded. Ah, a man of science. Anyway, I've been administering an antidote each hour, but I ran out. I'm afraid another dosage may be required. The doctor said as he held up an empty plastic jar. What do you need and where can I get it? Will asked. Set us up with a couple of cave mushrooms, and we will be right as rain. Peruse the cliffs to the west. Earnhardt said. Thank you, doctor. Sorry for the rush, Will said. Oh, no trouble at all. The girl must live, for you and me both. Earnhardt said as Will walked down the stairs and Angel followed him. I'll be back as soon as I can. Stay here and look after Daisy. Will said as he took out the 6P9 pistol and gave it to her. Here. Hopefully you won't need to use it, but if you do, just point and shoot. Will, where the hell did you get this? Angel asked. Long story short, I bought it at the village that saved me and Grant. Will said as he checked the clip in his Alaska 47 and pulled the slide back and slung it over his shoulder like he had done it 1,000 times. Do I even want to know how you can do that? Angel asked, seeing how Will handled a gun like he had done so before. Okay, you know how Grant went into the army. Will asked as Angel nodded. Well, I got recruited by an intelligence organization right after my parents' death. Intelligence, you mean a spy agency? Angel asked. Sort of. It's a lot to explain and I'm not even supposed to tell you, but since I'm not an official agent the rules are a little loose here. It's called SHIELD and that's how I know to do all this. Will said as he pulled out radio and satellite phone and gave it to her along with the backpack containing the laptop. Here. Hold on to this. Don't answer it until I get back. Okay, but Will, it's dangerous out there. Those pirates will kill you. Angel said as Will nodded. I know, but they wouldn't be the first bad guys to try. Will said as he walked to the door. A month ago, I took down one of the world's largest human trafficking and prostitution ring to get back my cousin. I'm not letting these pirates take our friends. You can count on that. Stay here, I'll be back as soon as I can. You better. Angel said as Will walked out the door and began making his way to the cliffs. He began making it slowly down the path until he came to a cave that half submerged by the ocean. He could have told me it was underwater. Will said as he took a breath and jumped into the water, covering his head as he splashed down. Will dove down and swum into the cave until he came into a small opening. Will broke the surface and saw there must be some kind of underground cavern system here. That doctor better be right about this. Will said to himself as swam forward and climbed out of the water and onto the rocks inside the underground cavern. Will shook his hair and wrung out his clothes as he began walking through the cave to find the mushrooms. He kept walking until he saw he needed to jump a gap to continue, so he did, using his powers to jump further than he normally would. Will kept moving, climbing some vines as he explored more of the underground cavern but still didn't see any mushrooms. He kept walking and saw a small alcove of vegetation and what looked like mushrooms but not the ones the doctor needed. Will kept moving when he stepped on a mushroom and it puffed out a yellow-colored gas. Will inhaled it and began coughing as he quickly covered his mouth and moved away. Will's vision began to get blurry as he felt heavy and lightheaded at the same time. What the hell? Will asked as he looked at his hands and felt weird. Will kept moving and making his way through the cavern when he began hearing voices in his head. I like the red ones myself. He heard the doctor say. Doctor. Will called out as his surroundings began to get warped. You are awake. Well, not all of you. The jungle speaks only through the warrior. The paths leads to the heart of the jungle. He heard Dennis said as the cave suddenly transformed into the jungle as he kept walking, but then images of recent memories began replaying like at a movie. My name is Phil Coulson. I'm with the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. So, Will's part alien. That's a thing. Will, look at me. You may not be my biological son and you may be part alien, but you are still you. From your file, you have a lot of potential to help the world. Avenger Initiative. Sounds like a comic book. The beginning of a change that SHIELD has been preparing for since its inception. Will saw recent memories playing over and over like someone hit a repeat button. And they were all memories after he got his powers from the meteor. Will kept walking through his hallucinogenic mind trip when he saw the same glowing blue meteor that gave him his powers fall through the sky and crash in front of him, sending up a cloud of dust. When the dust settled, the blue glow of the meteor called to him as the images changed to moments he wasn't familiar with. You've been asleep, Captain. For almost 75 years. You trying to get me back in the world, sir. I'm trying to save it. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people. To see if they could become something more. To see if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles we never could. We get into a situation like this again, what happens then? Then they'll come back, because we need them to. Nothing's been the same since New York. For as long as I can remember, I've just wanted to do what was right. Guess I'm not quite sure what that is anymore. The price of freedom is high, but it's a price I'm willing to pay. It doesn't matter what you once were. When you step out that door, you step out to kill. Because when you step out that door, you are an Avenger. There's no decision-making process going on here. We need to be put in check. Whatever step that takes, I'm game. I could do this all day. We have a duty as SHIELD agents, to protect and serve. To protect this world from a much weirder one, to be the shield that guards them. Will finally walked through the path and touched the meteor like he did the night he got his powers, and a huge wash of euphoria came over him and the images changed to different ones about some massive battle on a huge field of grass. There were aliens, giant machines, spaceships, a huge dome of energy, and a clash of fighting on the ground, and he was there. He fighting alongside a man in a black cat suit, Romanoff, a Chinese-American girl his age with metal gauntlets, his uncle Jeffrey who was wearing some kind of shield armor, and someone who looked a lot like Captain America. The images then shifted to show them fighting a losing battle against a large purple alien with a gold gauntlet and colored stones. The end is near. When I'm done, half of humanity will still exist. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. And I hope they remember you. In time, you will know what it's like to lose. To feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail all the same. Dread it, run from it, destiny still arrives. Fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe. But this does put a smile on my face. The meteor then glowed bright blue and all the voices and images disappeared as Will appeared back in the cave with the mushrooms he was looking for in front of him. What the hell? Will asked as he shook his head to clear out the cobwebs. Will picked up some of the mushrooms and put them in the plastic jar. He kept moving along the path and heard the distinct crash of waves against rocks and the rustle of wind. He kept moving through the cave and saw an old rusted artillery cannon from World War II. Will looked around and saw the moon was out. Jesus, how long was I down there? Will asked as he walked out and saw the road he took to the DR's house, so he followed it. He managed to make his way back to the doctor's house and went to the greenhouse where he saw the doctor working on something. Ah, William, what a pleasant surprise. I whipped up a couple of high notes since you were gone. Oh yes, and the girl is now awake. Terrible fever however. What did I do with the buggers? Earnhardt asked, looking around his table. Oh yes, I finished them off. Will just shook his head and took out the container. I have the mushrooms. Delightful. Give them to me. I need a couple of minutes to prepare the medicine. Go check on her, the doctor said as Will walked back into the house. He saw Angel asleep on the couch with the blanket tosses on the floor. He walked over, picked it up and put it back on her, and then walked upstairs to see Daisy lying on the bed, still in bad shape but awake. Will. Daisy managed to smile as she saw Will was alive and well. How are you feeling? Will asked as he sat down next to her. You got away. That's how I'm feeling. Where's Angel? Daisy asked as she looked around. She's downstairs, getting some rest. That doctor's a real trip, isn't he? Will asked as Daisy chuckled. Oh, he's harmless. He's kind of sweet, actually. He carried me here after Angel and I escaped the convoy. We'd be dead if it wasn't for her. The doctor saved me, Daisy said as Will smiled. Glad you made it. Grant's alive too, Will told her. Where is he? She asked. He's resting at the village that rescued us. He broke his leg. I'll bring him to see you later. Will told her as she smiled when she noticed his tattoos. Will, where did you get this? She asked as she held his arm. Some crazy guy at the village did this while I was asleep. I'm getting it removed as soon as we find the others and get home. Will told her. I want you to take it easy for now, okay? The poison running through your system isn't something you heal overnight. I will. What about you? She asked. I'm going to find the others. And make that psychotic son of a bitch who kidnapped us regret being born. Will told her as the doctor walked in. Get some rest. Okay, she said as she rested on the bed. Can I talk to you for a second, doctor? Will asked. Of course. Dr. Earnhardt replied. I wanted to thank you for saving Daisy and looking over my friends. Will told him. Think nothing of it. Dr. Earnhardt replied. We still have some friends missing. When I find them, can I bring them here? Will asked. Absolutely not. I cannot afford to have Voss's captives here. His men buy product from me todo el tempo. Dr. Earnhardt told him. Then this is also the safest place on the island until I can make a call for help. If not in the house, what about the caves down by the ocean? There's got to a small alcove there they can use. Please, doctor, it'll only be temporary until I can get them off the island. Will told him. Please, doctor. Let him bring the rest here. They'll die otherwise. Daisy told him. Agnes, how can I refuse you? Of course they can stay. Earnhardt said. Oh, I'm going to need a double dosage to calm my nerves. Daisy held the doctor's hand as she looked at Will. We'll be fine, she told him as Will knelt to her side and kissed Hiad. Wait here and get better. I'm going to find the others. He told her as she nodded. End of chapter 2. John Wick's primary pistol he used in John Wick 1. That's Will's primary weapon. Will's outfit is basically Star-Lord's new outfit. From his solo comic, Star-Lord Volume 2.2, except it has black accents and no symbol. If you need a visual reference, imagine the jacket Star-Lord wears in Guardians 1, and that's Will's jacket but dark blue with white accent lines on the elbows and back. Black Lightning's goggles from the Black Lightning TV show. Hoped you guys liked the second chapter of The Perfect One. When I first got the idea for the story and began writing the first chapter, wanting my character to go through something like in the first Taken movie sounded really cool and would be a good way of showing his transition from his old life into S.H.I.E.L.D. It shows what Will won't stand for, how willing he is to go above and beyond for people he cares about, and how merciless he can be to scum and trash. Plus it was an excuse to use Taken in Far Cry 3, one of my favorite video games, without having to do another crossover story. I hope you guys enjoy his character build up as well as the development of his powers. He uses them sparingly because he doesn't want to draw unwanted attention to himself, and S.H.I.E.L.D. would be on his case with him using his powers in public, and even as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, he'll need to use his powers with discretion. But he'll find creative ways to use them, and he'll show that with or without them, he's just as deadly and dangerous. Next chapter, Will continues to search for his friends on the treacherous Rook Islands as he deals with pirates and the insane Voss, who will stop at nothing until he has Will's head. Will's journey through the island shows him just how broken the world is, and what will he become in order to save it. William Detmer. Moniker equals. Appearance. Stephen Amell from Arrow, present-day build. Combat gear. Star-Lord's new outfit. Marvel Star-Lord Volume 2.2 cover art or Star-Lord jacket from Guardians 1 but dark blue and white. His new outfit is Will's tactical combat outfit except no symbol or mask yet. Tactical goggles from Black Lightning. Weapon. Modified Heckler and Coke P30L handgun. Casual outfit. Dark blue or black sneakers, jeans, blue or black t-shirt and either a zip-up hoodie, jacket, or button-up over. Born September 8, 1988, currently 22. Notable talents. Genius level intellect potential, self-defense military training from Harold Detmer, knowledge and training in 15 types of martial arts, gun knowledge and expert marksman trained by Clint Barton, espionage and spy skills learned by Natasha Romanoff, S.H.I.E.L.D. tactics and medical training from Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D. trainers, well-crafted knowledge and understanding of psychology, knowledge, and experience with engineering both mechanical and electrical. Personality. Kind, caring, composed, attentive, intelligent, and driven. Can be a bit of a smartass. When insulted, angered, or in a serious situation, focused and relentless. Considered dangerous and unforgiving in these types of situations. Uses powers sparingly in the field unless absolutely needs to. Just a heads up, the people I introduced in this chapter will come back again later in a much more substantial way when I get to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. arc, so don't forget them. As for their physical appearance, the ones from the X-Men First Class movie, the Gifted TV shows and the Far Cry game resembled their actors. That's what they look like. Alex Summers from X-Men Apocalypse. Keith Ramsey. Riley Brody. Grant Brody. Daisy Lee. Angel Salvadore from X-Men First Class. Clarice Fahm from The Gifted. Tabitha Jones imagined Teresa Palmer in appearance. Bobby Drake from X-Men. James Proudstar from The Gifted. Powers, if in bold, capable of doing now. Telekinesis, the ability to impact objects through the direct influence of mental power or other non-physical means. Power level equals adept. Binding to keep an object being from moving. Levitation to lift an object. Orbital field to makes objects an energy orbit around user. Psionic speed to augment user's physical speed. Psionic strength to augment user's physical strength. Telekinetic bullet projection projecting telekinetic energy as bullets. Telekinetic choking to strangle someone with telekinesis. Telekinetic grip to grasp an object firmly in place. Telekinetic maneuver to alter an object's directional course. Telekinetic pull and push to pull or push objects away from user. Molecular manipulation to manipulate matter at molecular level. Telekinetic aura, sense to sense one's surroundings with telekinesis. Telekinetic compression to crush an object. Telekinetic blast to emit telekinetic energy as a blast. Telekinetic destruction to make an object explode. Telekinetic flight using telekinesis to fly. Psionic explosion to create discharge psychic energy across a wide range. Telepathy, mentally receive or transmit information. Power level equals adept. Mind reading ability to read the thoughts of others. Range, 500 feet. Memory reading the ability to read the target's memories. Psychic communication the ability to secretly converse with others. Telepathic speaking to speak aloud using the mind. Download the ability to process download information of another person, untrained if used in a violent or angry mood, can harm the victim. Knowledge replication the ability to replicate learned knowledge and skills. Knowledge projection the ability to project knowledge to another. Rapid brain activity the ability to process and understand information at incredible rates. Mental inducement the ability to temporarily put the target's mind into the wanted state. Mental hallucination the ability to cause mental hallucinations. Mind link the ability to develop a permanent mental bond with any person. Mind walking melding to enter another's consciousness. Precognition awareness sixth sense awareness of imminent danger. Telepathic prediction the ability to know a person's moves by reading their brain waves. Astral projection to separate one's mind from their body and explore physical plane. Telepathic surgery the ability to perform neuropsychic surgery, healing and or damaging the mind. Memory mental manipulation the ability to manipulate a target's memories and mind. Clairvoyance the ability to gain direct visual information through non-physical means. Foresight the ability to foresee possible future events and observe what may happen. Disclaimer: I don't own Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or any Marvel properties, they belong to their respective owners, I'm just a fan. Thank you for tuning today's video fanfiction story. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and sharing your thoughts in the comments for the next exciting installment.